Clune Park Estate has the kind of atmosphere that's hard to describe until you're standing in it. In the 1920s, it was a real living community. People, noise, daily life happening in these buildings. Now it's just bones. A Gothic church with the windows gone, an abandoned school, empty flats with the doors hanging open. Two friends went in at night. For the first little while, it was just a creepy old building doing what creepy old buildings do. Then something changed.
Hello? Isn't it? Hello? Yo! Who the f*** is it? Hello? Yo, go upstairs, dude. Hello? Amy, what the f*** is that? Is that downstairs? Hello? There's someone down there, bro. How can you? I'm confused. Huh? Say that. Why in that room? Hello? Hello? What the f*** are we hearing? Well.
They pushed deeper into the building trying to track where it came from, and that's when the sounds started rising from somewhere below them. Not the usual groaning of an old building at night, something deliberate, something that wanted to be heard. They went down to find it. Empty room, no sounds, no face, nothing to show for it at all. First it was movement, something behind the curtain in one of the windows as they passed.
Hey, future in hand. Right, that one's open. Yo. Do you see movement then? Move the light. Yo. Yo. What's that? Yo.
Then, before they could figure out what they'd seen, a face appeared from behind it. Pale, still, just watching them. Gone before either of them could fully react. Just two people standing in the dark, finally understanding why the locals had been warning people about this place for years. Pablo was walking his dog. That's it. That's all this was supposed to be. But somewhere in those woods on June 23, 2023, he and Draco came across a building that had no reason to be there. No road, no signs, no path leading to it, just sitting alone in the middle of the trees. Pablo moved toward it, and almost immediately, something about the place pushed back.
Wow. Come. Oh, wow. Pequeña espina. Cae, Draco. Cae acá.
Vamos. Tenemos una escalera. Sí, definitivamente se nota que era. Bueno, es muy baja la entrada. Wow. Draco, vení. Bueno, definitivamente no quiere entrar. Es por algo. Vení, Draco. Realmente me siento como bastante acelerado el pulso. Hay una energía definitivamente fuerte. Draco, vení, él me sigue todo. Vení, entra. Eso. No. No. Bueno, me voy acá. Me voy acá porque no. Me estoy empezando a sentir bien.
It turned out to be an old abandoned church. And from the moment Pablo got close to it, something he couldn't name made him want to step back. He pushed through that feeling. Draco didn't. The dog just stopped, tail down, body stiff, not going anywhere near that door. And you have to take that seriously because dogs don't manufacture reactions for an audience. Pablo came back at night a few days later. Draco's reaction was worse. Barking, backing up, absolutely refusing.
Poco nervioso, debería decirlo. Vení, Draco, vení. Draco, por fin subió. Vení. ¿Qué pasa? ¿Por qué no querés estar acá? Vení. ¿Qué hay? Draco. Draco. Vení.
Whatever Pablo was picking up standing in front of that church, his dog had already made a decision about it and wasn't changing his mind.
Buka balik lah. Baru kita bincang ni. Sial betul aku baru tutup tak sampai berapa minit. Kita buka balik pintu ni. Kita tengok apa yang ada kat dalam. Sial betul. Baru tak baru sampai berapa minit.
This came from Indonesia, posted on Twitter, and the backstory matters here. This isn't just any school with a vague, spooky reputation. Locals had been talking about this place for generations. Specific stories, specific warnings, the kind of thing that gets passed down because people believe it. So when the guard on the late-night patrol started hearing loud banging echoing across the empty grounds, that context was already sitting heavy on him. He went toward the sound anyway. It was coming from the toilets.
Baru tak baru sampai berapa minit. Kita buka balik. Oi, siapa dalam oi? Kosong. Kosong lah.
He moved through the restroom slowly, camera up, following the noise, and then one of the cubicle doors creaked open by itself, and then, rising up from behind the top of that door, a dark shape, a head, right there, facing him, not moving, just looking. The guard didn't move. For a long moment, neither did it. Real or constructed, the appearance of that shape above that cubicle door hits in a way that bypasses logic entirely. Some things your body reacts to before your brain does. This is one of them. Daniel had done this shift hundreds of times. Same hallways, same routine, same predictable quiet.
This door keeps on opening and closing. Like, there's nobody here. I'm not doing the sensor. But it keeps on opening and closing. And I'm alone. I'm alone.
Which is exactly why the moment he turned that corner and saw the automatic doors sliding open and close with nobody near them, it stopped him dead. He pulled his phone out and started recording, partly to document it, partly I think because having a camera between you and something like that makes it feel slightly less real. He points the camera up and down that corridor. Nothing. Not a soul anywhere near those sensors. And the doors just keep going. Open, pause, close, open again. What gets to people isn't that it's dramatic, it's the rhythm of it. It's too steady for a fault, too consistent. Glitches are messy and random. This was almost deliberate. This was caught on a home security camera during a small get-together. Girl on the couch, music going, decorations up. Completely normal evening. The kind of footage that sits on a hard drive forever and nobody ever watches again. Except something happened in that room that made sure this one got watched over and over. That cup doesn't tip over, it flies, straight up off the table like something hit it full force, then crashes to the floor. She's out of her seat and out of that room before it even stops moving. And honestly, that's the right call. But here's what people keep coming back to. After she leaves, the balloon behind where she was sitting starts moving. Slow, drifting sideways. No window open, no fan running, no reason for it. Something moved through that room. You can almost feel the path it took. Set up or not, that balloon is the thing that gets under your skin. By the time this family gave it a name, they'd already been living with it long enough to have opinions about its personality. Ghost Malone. They said it like a housemate, almost affectionately. Toys moving, things shifting around, nothing aggressive about it, just a presence that had apparently decided this house was home. They laughed about it for a while. Then one night at 2:30 in the morning, the dad watched the toy car roll across the floor with nothing inside it that could make it move. No batteries, no motor, nothing.
The freaking toy cars. Oh, you've got to be f***ing kidding me. No. No, sir. No, ma'am. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know whether to wake Elizabeth or somebody call Justin Nunley or an exorcist. I don't know. I mean, I'm not scared, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shaking. So I'm just gonna leave it there till the morning for Elizabeth to come play with it. And it's not electronical, y'all. There's no damn motor in that thing. I feel so weird and out of place right now. I don't know if it's still there. To be truthful, I'm thinking about just leaving Elizabeth in Revelation and going somewhere for the night. I don't know what to do. Let's check on it. You still there? Pirates of the Caribbean's getting good. I'm not scared. I'm just kind of freaked out because, like, it's friendly.
Listen to his voice in that footage. He keeps saying he's not scared. He is absolutely scared. He's standing in his own living room at 3 a.m., genuinely thinking about grabbing his family and getting out for the night. People in the comments threw everything at him. Salt, prayers, cleansing rituals. He tried them all. Ghost Malone didn't care. And then it started answering back. Direct questions met with moving objects.
And this is what I woke up to. Elizabeth. Baby. Hey.
Goodbye.
Okay, no, for real, like, so what are we doing? Oh. Okay. Somebody said salt. Hold on. I don't know what it is.
I don't know if you're supposed to draw a circle around it.
Well, it's a half circle, but I don't think you're supposed to do anything else. I don't know. Y'all got suggestions, let me know. Are you there? Yeah. So. Okay. Well, that's one of the things that I've discovered. So we are all sitting here enjoying our Taco Bell, right? And Ghost Malone was over there shaking the door a second ago. Ghost Malone, if you are still around, do something.
Give us a sign.
Oh, okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Look at her.
Nonchalant. Alright, so ironically, I'm watching Ghostbusters, right? Ghost Malone. Ghosty. Yo. Are you kidding? Alright, so I've been asking Ghost Malone some questions. Okay, so 1 time if you're there, 2 times, or I guess no times if you're not. Definitely there, okay. Are you friendly? Okay, okay. Do you like Ghostbusters? No? Okay, do you like movies? Okay, okay. Alright, just not Ghostbusters, I guess it's insulting. Are you here to cause harm? Okay. Okay. Man, I wish I knew Morse code. We'd try that. Are you an older spirit? Okay, but not a bad spirit. Okay. Is there more than one of you? Oh, okay.
Doors shaking on cue, paintings moving on the walls, the dog refusing to enter certain rooms.
So, a couple weird things have happened tonight. Like my mom's painting over there has moved. And Ghosty. Ghost Malone. You there? Don't judge the trash. It's trash day. Ghosty. Okay. Maxie, what was that? Huh? So we're sitting here. Revelation here is it?
Hi, Maxie.
It should also be noted that we've had several offers from paranormal people to come here and whatnot. We're down. But there's been a few of them that are private profiles, minus the big ones you guys have suggested. Nobody's reached out, but I don't know. I might take offers for people to just come stay the night so you can see whether it's real or not for yourself. I don't know. But yeah, I am gonna take a list of questions. I've been writing down in the comments all the questions you guys have for Ghost Malone, and then we're gonna do the Stranger Things light or dog button things to see if
Someone flagged something that reframed the whole thing. When you start talking back to something, giving it a name, inviting it to respond, you're not neutralizing it, you're feeding it. Ghost Malone had always seemed playful, patient, but the thing about something that's been quietly building its strength in your house is that eventually it stops being subtle. Meg sat on this video for 6 years, not because she forgot about it, because she couldn't explain it and wasn't ready to deal with the response. The clip itself looks like nothing at first. Night before her brother's wedding, he'd fallen asleep on the couch after celebrating. She filmed it the way anyone would, just a funny moment to tease him with later. She had absolutely no idea what else was in that footage until she watched it back.
It doesn't matter. If Katerina were standing here instead of me, if it were she asking you, why? It doesn't matter. If Katerina were standing here instead of me, if it were she asking you, why?
Right next to the couch where her brother was sleeping, a figure. There and then gone in seconds. Head and upper body clear enough to make out, but nothing from the waist down. Just hovering there beside him. And then it's not. Her sister-in-law was asleep. Her cousin was asleep. No one else was in that room. Meg watched this back for 6 years and sat with it before she finally posted it. That detail alone, that should tell you something about what it's like to be the person holding footage like this. This was supposed to be a fond memory, a band's last show. Small crowd. One of the guys gave a little speech about how it all started, what it meant to them. Genuine, warm, the kind of thing you want captured on camera. And it was captured, along with something else standing in the back of that room that had absolutely no business being there.
Cuando entraron en la universidad, pues ya se deshizo el grupo, se mantuvieron un tiempo, pero no se pudo después. Y ya, pues ahorita me llegaron con esto de que casi que la última tocada.
Nobody noticed it while it was happening. It was only when people went back through the footage that they found it. Right there beside the television, a figure standing in the background, still, upright, like it had simply always been there, watching. Except it wasn't there earlier in the video. And when people actually looked at the space between that TV and the wall, the space this thing was apparently occupying, it was way too narrow for a person to stand in. Not tight, impossible. Whatever was in that room for their last show, it wasn't hiding. It was just watching. Security work at night is 90% sitting and watching nothing happen. So when this guard's eyes locked onto one of his monitors and stayed there, it wasn't because of any alarm going off. Something on that screen just looked wrong. The welder was alone on the night shift. Mid-task, he just stops, turns, and greets someone. Completely casual, the way you'd acknowledge a workmate who's just walked in. Nodding, talking, shaking hands. Normal as anything. Except the camera showing an empty factory floor the entire time. Nobody walked in, nobody was there. The guard called him immediately, made him watch the recording, and the welder had no idea what to say because he remembered every bit of it. A perfectly ordinary interaction with someone the camera says was never there. Neither of them has ever made sense of that handshake. Danny had been brushing it off for weeks. The lights would cut out, just his place, nobody else's on the street. In the daytime, you can talk yourself out of that. You can find a reason. But sitting alone in a completely dark house with a camera running, reasons start feeling a lot less solid. And then his bedroom door started shaking.
Power's been out for about 30 minutes now. I keep hearing noises in the hall outside the room. I haven't heard anything for about 5 minutes now, and I think...
When he went back over the footage, he spotted something near the doorway he'd completely missed while it was happening. A tall, dark shape, just standing there. Danny still lives in that house, still deals with the outages. Whatever keeps showing up when the lights go out, it's never left.
It was a sunny day in Wilshire County, just like any other, when Victoria Sears, a skilled and experienced skydiver, decided to take another jump. For her, the adrenaline, the wind on her face, and the endless sky were nothing new. But this time, something went horribly wrong. Moments after deploying her parachute, she discovered the lines were tangled. To make things worse, the reserve parachute also failed. As Victoria plummeted toward the ground at a terrifying speed, her heart raced. Her only thought was about her children and how they would grow up without her. How could someone as seasoned as Victoria make such a mistake? And why did it happen? The answers would unravel a chilling mystery, one that would forever change her life. Who is Victoria Sears? Victoria Sears was born in 1977 in Edinburgh, Scotland, to a retired military officer. From an early age, she was full of energy and determination. During her school years, she threw herself into various sports, and at 16, she tried skydiving for the first time. She fell in love with it immediately. After finishing high school, Victoria enrolled in the University of Glasgow's medical program, where she balanced her studies with athletic pursuits. She earned her degree in physical therapy and followed in her father's footsteps by joining the British Army as a physical therapist. Alongside her medical career, she excelled in skydiving, becoming a certified instructor and completing over 1,500 jumps. Victoria was a true professional, a free fall coach, mentor, and member of the Army National Parachuting Association. By the time she turned 30, Victoria had built a successful career. She became a captain in the Army, worked as a physical therapist at a military hospital, and balanced those duties with her passion for skydiving. Despite her professional achievements, her personal life was less stable. In 2008, she married a fellow medical professional, but the marriage ended within a year. In mid-2009, her life took a dramatic turn. A tall, charismatic officer named Emil Cilliers came to the hospital where Victoria worked, recovering from a skiing accident. He became one of her patients, and before long, he swept her off her feet. Emil became her second husband, and the love of her life a love that would nearly destroy her. Emil Cilliers, a dangerous charmer. Born in 1980 in South Africa to a wealthy family of British expatriates, Emil Cilliers had a magnetic charm. But behind his captivating exterior lay a darker, more dangerous side. Nicoline's arrival at Emil's doorstep turned his carefully constructed life upside down. Emil, now living with his British wife Carly Taylor and their young son with another baby on the way, was forced to face the consequences of his lies. Carly, unaware of Nicoline or her two children, was blindsided. Emil immediately tried to take control of the situation. Switching to Afrikaans so Carly couldn't understand, he told Nicoline it was over between them and that she had no place in his life anymore. Nicoline, however, was determined to make Emil take responsibility for their children. She refused to leave without confronting the situation. Carly, sensing something was wrong despite not understanding the language, demanded answers. Emil brushed her off, claiming Nicoline was just an ex who was trying to cause trouble. But the tension in the household was undeniable. Caught between two worlds, Emil continued his deceitful ways. While Nicoline tried to build a life for her children in the UK, Emil remained unfaithful and manipulative, juggling his relationships with lies and empty promises. His charm allowed him to evade accountability for a time, but cracks began to show. Carly grew increasingly suspicious, and Nicoline's patience wore thin. As the truth about Emil's double life began to unravel, his web of lies became harder to maintain. His manipulative behavior, infidelity, and lack of responsibility would eventually lead to consequences far beyond what he could have anticipated. What Nicoline, Carly, and even Emil himself didn't realize was that his actions would set off a chain of events that would have devastating and far-reaching effects on everyone involved. Nicoline's sudden arrival at Emil's home shattered his carefully curated image. Faced with his pregnant wife Carly and his ex with two children in tow, Emil acted quickly. Speaking in Afrikaans to keep Carly from understanding, he coldly told Nicoline that their relationship was over and that he had no intention of being involved in their children's lives. Nicoline, devastated, left in tears. Left with no choice, Emil had to explain Nicoline's presence to Carly. As always, he twisted the truth, portraying Nicoline as a troublemaker who was trying to disrupt their lives. Carly believed him, though unease lingered. Despite Emil's efforts to control the narrative, his marriage to Carly was far from perfect. Over their 6.5-year union, Emil repeated the same behavior that had ended his relationship with Nicoline: constant infidelity and emotional manipulation. Even after having 2 children together, Emil showed little regard for Carly's well-being, particularly during vulnerable times like childbirth. Nicoline, Carly, and later Victoria all shared similar stories of how Emil demanded intimacy, even when it caused them pain, revealing his selfish and unempathetic nature. Shortly after marrying Carly, Emil enlisted in the British Armed Forces, joining the Army Physical Training Corps. As a fitness instructor with a military rank and a stable salary, his career appeared respectable, but his personal life remained chaotic. Emil and Victoria: a new chapter. In 2009, Emil broke his ankle in a skiing accident and ended up in a hospital where Victoria worked as a physical therapist. Sparks flew immediately. Victoria, 3 years older, was recovering emotionally from a divorce, and Emil wasted no time in comforting her. His charm was irresistible, and she quickly fell for him. At the time, Victoria had no idea Emil was still married. Meanwhile, Carly was unaware that Emil had already met with a divorce attorney and was preparing to end their marriage. When the truth eventually surfaced, Emil tried to shift the blame, claiming Carly was the reason their marriage had failed. In retaliation, Carly revealed to Victoria that Emil had a history of deception: his relationship with Nicoline, their 2 children, and his pattern of infidelity. Victoria was stunned. The man she thought was her perfect partner had a messy and complicated past. Yet Emil didn't back down. He declared his undying love for Victoria, insisting that she was different, that he had never felt this way about anyone else. Despite her shock and the lies she had uncovered, Victoria had already fallen deeply for Emil. Against her better judgment, she chose to forgive him, convinced their love was genuine. Little did she know, Emil's dark tendencies and manipulative nature would soon put her life and the lives of those around her in grave danger. Despite Emil's flaws, Victoria chose to embrace him as he was, forgiving his past and moving forward with their life together. Over time, Carly and Victoria not only became civil but developed a genuine friendship. Their bond grew so strong that Carly even trusted Victoria to look after her children, a testament to the trust and understanding that had formed between the two women. In 2010, Emil finalized his divorce and quickly proposed to Victoria. She accepted with joy, and the two celebrated with a grand wedding. They moved into a spacious home in Wiltshire, which Victoria had purchased using an inheritance from her late parents. Their life together seemed full of promise. In 2011, the couple welcomed their first child, a daughter named April. By 2015, their family grew again with the birth of their son, Ben. From the outside, Emil and Victoria appeared to have it all: two beautiful children, a loving relationship, and a happy family life. Victoria's passion for skydiving even brought Emil into the sport. He earned his own instructor certification and became skilled in packing both main and reserve parachutes, providing an additional source of income for the family. To friends and family, their life seemed perfect. Victoria was deeply in love with Emil, who had recently been promoted to sergeant. They spent quality time with their children and maintained a picture-perfect image. But behind closed doors, Emil's restlessness resurfaced. Bored with domestic life, Emil began having affairs again. While he didn't go to great lengths to hide his infidelity, he would always fall to his knees, begging Victoria for forgiveness. He promised that she was the only one he truly loved, and that his flings were meaningless. Time and again, Victoria forgave him, determined to hold her family together and maintain the illusion of a perfect life. The jump that nearly ended it all. Victoria's love for skydiving had been a constant in her life. By 2015, she had completed over 2,500 jumps without a single incident. She worked as an instructor with the Army Parachute Association and was known for her professionalism and expertise. However, her second pregnancy meant taking a break from the sport she loved so much. She longed to get back into the sky. In early March 2015, Victoria gave birth to Ben. Shortly after recovering, she returned to skydiving, eager to feel the wind on her face again. But what should have been a routine jump turned into a nightmare. The sport she loved and trusted almost cost her life, pulling her into a chilling mystery that would unravel the truth about the man she thought she knew. On April 1st, Emil surprised Victoria with a special plan. He had booked a tandem skydive for the two of them. Victoria was overjoyed, seeing it as a thoughtful way for Emil to add some excitement to their routine. The jump was scheduled for April 4th, and the couple, along with their young daughter, headed to the skydiving base. They suited up, ready for the adventure, but their plans were thwarted by bad weather. Strong winds and heavy clouds rolled in, grounding the plane and postponing the jump to the next day, Easter Sunday. When they returned home, Emil suddenly announced that he wouldn't be able to join Victoria for the jump. He claimed urgent matters required his attention and suggested that the children stay home since they might get restless with no one to watch them. On the morning of April 5th, Emil wished Victoria luck and stayed behind with their 4-year-old daughter and newborn son as she left in high spirits. At the skydiving base, Victoria faced another delay due to poor weather. The group waited for hours before finally receiving clearance to take off around 3 p.m. The plane climbed into the sky with 12 skydivers on board. One by one, they made their jumps, each savoring the thrill of freefall. Victoria, a seasoned skydiver, was the last to jump, eagerly anticipating the familiar rush she loved so much. But her descent quickly turned into a nightmare. When she pulled the cord to deploy her parachute, she realized something was horribly wrong. The lines were tangled. Despite her efforts, she couldn't untangle them. Acting swiftly, she cut away the main parachute and deployed her reserve chute, only to face another catastrophe. The reserve parachute partially opened but failed to fully inflate, leaving her spinning uncontrollably through the air at terrifying speed. In that heart-stopping moment, Victoria's mind didn't dwell on the fear of death. Her thoughts were with her husband and their 2 small children, waiting for her at home. Desperate to survive, she used every ounce of her training to slow her fall, positioning her body to minimize the impact. The deafening wind and spinning sky disoriented her, and eventually everything went black. Victoria regained consciousness lying in a freshly plowed field. Remarkably, she was alive, but her body was broken, battered by the violent landing. Help arrived quickly, and she was rushed to the hospital, where doctors were stunned by her survival. Little did she know her brush with death was no accident. The mystery surrounding the failure of her parachutes would unravel a web of betrayal, deceit, and danger, turning her life upside down. Victoria was disoriented, struggling to understand what had happened or why people were frantically moving around her. Her colleagues, who had rushed to the scene, never expected to find her alive. But when she opened her eyes and asked for help standing, they were stunned. She had been incredibly lucky. The soft, freshly plowed soil had cushioned her fall, saving her from life-threatening injuries. Despite surviving the harrowing incident, Victoria suffered a broken leg, collarbone, and several ribs on the side she landed on. Remarkably, her spine, internal organs, and head were mostly unharmed. Emergency responders quickly airlifted her to the nearest hospital, where she received critical care and was stabilized. A suspicious accident raises questions. In the skydiving world, the failure of a parachute is a rare event, and for both the main and reserve parachutes to fail is virtually unheard of. This immediately raised red flags. The lead instructor at the skydiving base, upon hearing about Victoria's near-fatal accident, decided to personally inspect her parachutes. Upon inspection, the lines of the main parachute were indeed tangled, but whether this was due to an oversight or intentional tampering wasn't clear. The real alarm came with the reserve parachute. Two critical pieces of equipment were missing. These components hadn't torn away during the jump, they had simply never been there. This omission prevented the reserve parachute from deploying properly and nearly cost Victoria her life. What made this even more suspicious was the fact that the parachutes had undergone multiple checks by experienced professionals. For such a glaring issue to go unnoticed during routine inspections seemed implausible. Concerned, the lead instructor reported the matter to the authorities, suspecting foul play. Caroline raises alarm. Around the same time, Victoria's best friend, Caroline, also contacted the police. She was deeply disturbed by the details of the accident and didn't hesitate to name a suspect, Victoria's husband, Emil. According to Caroline, the marriage appeared perfect to outsiders, but behind closed doors, Emil was manipulative and toxic. Caroline told investigators that Emil's behavior had often raised concerns. While he was outwardly charming, those close to Victoria knew about his frequent lies, infidelity, and controlling tendencies. Victoria had confided in Caroline about Emil's darker side, though she had always tried to maintain an image of a happy family. With suspicions growing and both parachutes exhibiting signs of tampering, the investigation took a sharp turn. The question was no longer about whether Victoria's accident was intentional, it was about who wanted her dead, and why. Emil, with his complicated past and manipulative nature, quickly became a person of interest. Victoria, still recovering at home, was shocked when officers shared some of the peculiar findings of their investigation. She was already struggling to reconcile the near-fatal accident with her belief that Emil was a loving and devoted husband. What the police revealed next would challenge everything she thought she knew. A growing web of lies. Detectives informed Victoria that Emil had admitted to a string of extramarital affairs, including a recent 6-month-long relationship with an Austrian ski instructor named Stephanie Galler. To make matters worse, Emil claimed he had been planning to leave Victoria and marry Stephanie soon. Victoria was devastated but still found it difficult to believe Emil could have been involved in her accident. Yet, as investigators delved deeper, the picture of Emil they presented was far from the devoted husband Victoria thought she knew. Haunting financial troubles. The police also uncovered Emil's severe financial difficulties. He owed significant amounts to multiple creditors and was under pressure from several high-interest loan companies. Detectives learned he was a compulsive gambler who had racked up debts from frequent, reckless bets. Some of his creditors had begun issuing threats, and Emil had even suggested to investigators that the parachute tampering might have been a message meant for him, not Victoria. This explanation, however, only added to the suspicions against him. It seemed like an attempt to deflect attention from his potential role in the incident. A critical misstep. What made investigators especially wary of Emil was his own admission he had personally checked Victoria's parachutes before the jump and had kept them with him at all times, even taking them with him when he went to the restroom. While he framed this as a gesture of care and diligence, it came off as an incriminating detail, suggesting he had the opportunity to tamper with the equipment. This revelation, combined with the fact that Emil had abruptly cancelled his own participation in the jump, left detectives questioning his motives. Victoria's dilemma. At home, Victoria struggled to process the mounting evidence against Emil. She wanted to believe in his innocence, clinging to the image of the man who had cared for her so tenderly during her recovery. But the police insisted the signs pointed to something darker. They emphasized Emil's gambling debts, his pattern of deceit, and the precise knowledge he had of the parachute's condition. As the investigation deepened, the police were convinced that the incident was no accident and Emil's web of lies was quickly unraveling. A key detail emerges. As Victoria recounted the events surrounding the ill-fated jump, she remembered a critical moment. On the day of the initial attempt, when weather conditions forced a delay, Emil had taken their daughter to the restroom while carrying Victoria's backpack. This backpack contained her parachutes. When the jump was cancelled for the day, all equipment was supposed to be returned to the gear check-in station per standard safety protocol. However, Emil had suggested they leave the gear in a locker instead, claiming it would save time the following morning by avoiding long lines at the equipment window. This deviation from procedure struck investigators as highly unusual. By keeping the equipment overnight, Emil could have had an opportunity to tamper with it away from the prying eyes of trained staff. Financial motive and future plans. Detectives pieced together Emil's possible motive. While Victoria had taken precautions to ensure her assets would bypass Emil in the event of her death leaving the house and savings to her sister, there was still the matter of her life insurance policy. If Victoria died, Emil would receive a payout of nearly $200,000, a sum that could help him pay off some of his debts and start a new life. Additionally, Emil's relationship with Stephanie Galler was advancing rapidly. He was already making plans to move abroad with her, and Victoria's continued presence, as well as her suspicions about his fidelity and finances, had become an obstacle. A second look at the parachutes. Investigators began reconstructing the timeline and chain of custody for Victoria's parachutes. The lead instructor at the skydiving base confirmed that the gear had been inspected and packed by experienced staff prior to the scheduled jump on April 4th. Any tampering, therefore, had to have occurred after the parachutes left the facility. The missing components in the reserve parachute were also suspicious. Experts confirmed that these vital parts didn't simply fall off, they had to have been deliberately removed. Coupled with Emil's odd insistence on holding onto Victoria's gear overnight, this pointed toward premeditated sabotage or Victoria's inner conflict. Despite the mounting evidence, Victoria found it almost impossible to believe that Emil, the father of her children, would intentionally try to harm her. She admitted to investigators that while her marriage was deeply flawed, she had never imagined her husband would go to such lengths. However, as more details surfaced, she began to question everything she thought she knew. Emil's gambling addiction, his infidelity, his plans with another woman, and the life insurance policy all painted a chilling picture. Arrest and charges. On the strength of the evidence, Emil was arrested and charged with attempted murder. Investigators believed they had enough proof to argue that Emil had tampered with Victoria's parachutes in an attempt to stage her death as a tragic accident. Victoria, meanwhile, was left grappling with the realization that the man she had trusted and loved for years might have wanted her dead. Shocking betrayals. Victoria was devastated as investigators presented overwhelming evidence of Emil's infidelity and duplicity. Not only had Emil been unfaithful to her with Stephanie, but he had also rekindled an affair with his ex-wife Carrie. This revelation hit particularly hard, as Victoria had trusted Carrie enough to leave her children in her care and even considered her a friend. Emil's betrayal extended beyond his relationships. He was active on multiple dating apps and had attended speed dating events while still married to Victoria. These actions made it clear that Emil had no intention of maintaining their family life and was already planning his next move. It's a pattern of manipulation. Victoria learned that Emil had a history of manipulating the women in his life. He often used charm to gain forgiveness and access to their finances while hiding his darker motives. Investigators painted a picture of a man who saw relationships as stepping stones for his own gain, often discarding partners once they were no longer useful. The gas leak incident from the prior week now took on a more sinister tone. Investigators suggested it wasn't an accident, but a deliberate act by Emil. The evidence, a tampered valve with scratch marks and traces of his blood, was too damning to ignore. The failed explosion seemed to have been Emil's first attempt to rid himself of Victoria and their children. Victoria's response. Despite these revelations, Victoria continued to defend Emil. She struggled to reconcile the evidence with the man she thought she knew. She cited his affectionate care during her hospital stay and his apparent love for their children. However, as more damning details surfaced, her confidence in his innocence began to waver. Emil's arrest. The police moved forward with charging Emil with attempted murder, citing both the parachute tampering and the gas leak incident as evidence of premeditation. The life insurance payout and Emil's plans to leave for Austria with Stephanie provided clear motives. Emil maintained his innocence, claiming the parachute failure was a tragic accident and that the gas leak was a coincidence. However, his calm demeanor, history of deceit, and mounting financial troubles only worked against him. The aftermath. Victoria faced an unimaginable emotional battle. The man she had once believed to be her partner and the father of her children was now accused of plotting to kill her. Her faith in Emil's innocence was shattered as she reflected on his actions and their marriage. She took steps to protect herself and her children, cutting off contact with Emil and focusing on their safety and well-being. The case drew significant public attention, with many stunned by the lengths Emil had allegedly gone to in pursuit of his own desires. It served as a chilling reminder of how appearances can mask deep-seated malice. A new beginning. Victoria's recovery, both physical and emotional, was grueling, but she emerged stronger. She resumed her work as a skydiving instructor, determined not to let her passion be tainted by Emil's actions. Her story became an inspiration for resilience and strength in the face of betrayal. The case against Emil unfolded in court, where he faced justice for his alleged crimes, with Victoria standing as a powerful voice for truth. The impact of Emil's deceit. As the trial unfolded, Victoria's internal struggle became increasingly apparent. Despite overwhelming evidence against Emil, she continued to defend him, caught in the psychological grip of his manipulation. In court, she even repeated his claims, suggesting that her own emotional struggles, including postpartum depression, could have led her to inadvertently sabotage her parachute. Victoria's defense of Emil shocked those around her, shedding light on the psychological abuse she had endured throughout their marriage. Despite her loyalty, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Investigations revealed Emil's calculated attempts to endanger his wife and children, including sabotaging a parachute and staging a gas leak, alongside his long history of infidelity and manipulation. Testimonies from Victoria, friends and colleagues left no doubt about his guilt. In June 2018, Emil was convicted of attempted murder and endangering the lives of his family. He was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 18 years. For Victoria, the verdict brought a sense of justice, but couldn't erase the years of trauma. She made the courageous decision to divorce Emil, breaking free from the toxic marriage that had dominated her life. With time, she recognized the extent of his manipulative control and the environment of fear and dependency he had created. Determined to rebuild her life, Victoria focused on healing and raising her children. She became a passionate advocate for survivors of psychological abuse, using her story to inspire others to recognize the warning signs of toxic relationships and find the courage to leave. Though the scars of her marriage remained, she emerged stronger, reclaiming her life and her future. Meanwhile, Emil's life in prison stood in stark contrast to his former image of control and freedom. Stripped of his manipulative power and isolated from his family, he faced the reality of his actions. His story became a warning about the dangers of unchecked selfishness and the devastating impact of abuse. Victoria's journey from victim to survivor served as a beacon of hope, showing the strength it takes to overcome even the darkest chapters of life. Today we're diving into another tragic and horrifying case. This crime, which happened in late summer 2016 at Spring Creek Park, left the community outraged. Residents had been warning city authorities for years about dangerous individuals frequenting the park. Some of these people gathered in groups, while others wandered alone, but their presence often made locals feel unsafe. Unfortunately, it took a terrible crime for the city to finally take action. The incident also sparked widespread conversations about the safety of female runners, especially those who jog alone. According to a survey, 54% of women feel anxious when going out, fearing verbal harassment or even physical attacks. The story of Karina Vetrano is particularly chilling and puzzling for several reasons. First, nothing seemed out of the ordinary on the day it happened. The attack occurred in broad daylight in a fairly busy area. Second, the details of her death were deeply disturbing. And third, the investigation and sentencing of her killer left many questions unanswered. On Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016, Karina planned to meet her father after work. Family gatherings had become rare since Karina moved out, and both she and her parents had busy schedules. Besides, Karina was juggling 2 jobs. Her father, Philip, picked her up and took her to his home, where the family spent some quality time catching up on the week's events. Before heading back, Karina asked her dad if he wanted to go for a jog with her, as they often did together. "I can't this time," he replied. "My back is hurting so badly. Maybe I need a new prescription, or it's just the weather." He even offered to call her a cab, but Karina declined. The weather was pleasant, with the heat easing off, and the air smelled fresh. She wanted to enjoy the run and was training for an upcoming marathon. The young woman had recently ended a relationship and was hoping to clear her mind. Running, she thought, would help her feel better. That evening at 5:45 p.m., Karina set out for her jog. It was the last time her parents saw their youngest daughter alive. Karina left her house for a jog, heading to Spring Creek Park, a peaceful oasis surrounded by the city's bustle. The park was known for its greenery and serenity, but only parts of it were open for walking. The rest was dense with thickets and swamps. Before she left, her father urged her to stick to her usual route and avoid unknown paths and strangers. Sadly, Karina ignored his advice. Seeking solitude, she ventured into a secluded, grassy area. While jogging, Karina's thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a sharp blow to the back of her head. She collapsed, and in that moment, her life took a tragic turn. Back at the Vetrano home, worry was growing. It had been 2 hours since they'd last seen Karina, and she wasn't answering her phone. Her parents were growing frantic, making repeated calls to her number. She had promised to keep her phone close, and her failure to respond felt alarming. Sensing something was terribly wrong, her father reached out to a neighbor who happened to be the chief of the New York City Police Department. Knowing Philip wouldn't overreact without reason, the officer quickly took action. Karina was officially reported missing, and a large-scale search began. Police combed through Spring Creek Park and the nearby streets, using every resource at their disposal, including experienced canine units. They understood how critical the first 24 hours are in a missing persons case and worked tirelessly before nightfall. Meanwhile, Philip Vetrano couldn't sit idly by. Together with a group of volunteers, he searched the park himself, walking its paths and trudging through tall grass while making phone calls in desperation. As darkness fell, he noticed a faint light in the grass. Approaching it, he realized it was Karina's phone. Clinging to hope, he thought she might have simply lost it and hadn't been able to let them know. Determined to find her, Philip continued searching. He pushed further into the thicket, stepping carefully through the grass, until he came across something soft. It was a partially undressed body lying face down. When Philip turned it over, his worst nightmare became a reality. It was Karina. A heart-wrenching scream erupted from his chest as he held his daughter. She hadn't simply lost her phone as he'd hoped. His little girl wasn't answering her calls because her life had been cruelly taken. The devastating reality of what had happened sank in for Mr. Vetrano. His screams of anguish alerted the police, who rushed to him and carefully pulled him away from Karina's body. They explained that the area was now a crime scene and every detail could be critical evidence. They urged him not to touch anything to preserve the integrity of the investigation. On his way home, Philip's mind was consumed with grief and memories. He agonized over how to break the news of Karina's death to his wife. Moments from the past flashed through his mind, like a vivid slideshow. He remembered July 12, 1986, in Queens, the day their second daughter was born. Karina had always been a source of pride for him. From a young age, she was obedient, well-mannered, and driven. He thought of her first day of school, how diligently she pursued her education, and how it paid off when she graduated from St. John's University with a master's degree in speech pathology. She had always dreamed of helping children and worked tirelessly with autistic kids. Karina was a vibrant and multifaceted individual who loved to travel, write, and run. Running was a passion they shared, which deepened their father-daughter bond. Philip recalled how protective he had been of her, particularly when it came to her relationships. He wanted her to be cherished and to build a family as strong as the one he had with Kathy. He had dreamed of seeing her happy, settled, and eventually giving him grandchildren. The journey home felt endless. As Philip reached the house, he paused at the door, gathering his strength. "I need to be strong for my family," he told himself, trying to muster the courage to face what was ahead. Kathy met him at the door, and as soon as she saw his face, she knew. He didn't need to say a word. Overwhelmed, she began to cry and embraced her husband. The news of Karina's death quickly spread among family and friends, leaving everyone in shock. Accepting her sudden and violent death was almost impossible. Investigators concluded that Karina had been subjected to a brutal attack. It was clear she had fought back. Her fists were still clenched even in death. Her body bore bruises and abrasions, and her athletic clothing was torn. The autopsy confirmed the horrifying details. The back of her skull had been shattered by a blow from a blunt object. Though a blunt object, likely a stone, caused severe injuries, the actual cause of death was asphyxiation. A clear mark on her neck pointed to strangulation. Additionally, the forensic report confirmed the attack's intimate and violent nature. Earth and grass were found under Karina's fingernails, evidence of her desperate struggle to escape. Her mouth showed signs of trauma. Several teeth were cracked or knocked out, likely from biting her attacker in self-defense. Her neck was covered in scratches, where she had clawed in a frantic attempt to break free. Karina fought fiercely for her life, refusing to give up, even in her final moments. Karina, the youngest Vetrano daughter, was known for her vibrant personality and diverse interests, especially her love for writing. In 2013, she starred in a short film by her friend Petro Georgiadis, based on a poem she had written called Paradox. On her blog, Karina often explored deep topics like love and mortality, showcasing her thoughtful and creative nature. Not long after this tragedy, another shocking discovery made headlines. In Princeton, Massachusetts, the body of another jogger was found hidden among tall grass. The circumstances were eerily similar: a young woman attacked in a secluded area during a run. Speculation arose: was a serial offender preying on female joggers? The cases were handed over to geneticists, who compared DNA samples collected at both crime scenes. Surprisingly, the DNA analysis revealed no connection between the two crimes. The attackers were determined to be different individuals, ruling out the possibility of a single perpetrator. In Karina's case, DNA evidence was key. Small quantities of unidentified DNA were collected from under her fingernails, her back, and her phone. Though limited, experts deemed the samples sufficient for analysis. For months, this DNA remained the investigation's most promising lead, giving hope that it might eventually point to the attacker. The discovery of this crucial evidence kept the investigation alive, even as the case grew increasingly complex and emotionally charged for all involved. The DNA evidence provided a chance to identify Karina Vetrano's killer. Since many violent crimes are committed by someone close to the victim, police considered all possibilities. As part of the investigation, Karina's father, who had discovered her body, provided a DNA sample. Unfortunately, this procedure took place on the day of her funeral, compounding the family's grief. Later, all of Karina's relatives also underwent DNA testing, but none matched the samples found at the crime scene. Investigators then interviewed her friends and family to determine if Karina had any enemies or ill wishes. The results were consistent: Karina was universally loved and respected, with no apparent conflicts in her life. With no clear suspects, detectives theorized that the crime was driven by base motives. They speculated that someone had encountered Karina in the secluded area of the park and attacked her. Desperate for a breakthrough, law enforcement turned to the public for help, offering a $10,000 reward for any information leading to the perpetrator. The response was widespread, but frustratingly, it yielded no actionable leads. Detectives pursued around 250 tips, conducted 600 genetic tests, and compiled over 1,700 reports. Despite their efforts, they were unable to make progress. It appeared the attacker had no prior criminal record, or at least had never been caught before, making the investigation even more challenging. On August 31, 2016, a utility worker approached the police with a potential lead. He reported that, on the day of Karina's murder, he had been in a restricted area of the park and saw a man emerge from the bushes before running northward. Using his testimony, the NYPD developed a sketch of the individual in December 2016. However, investigators acknowledged that the man in the sketch could have been an innocent bystander in the wrong place at the wrong time. Unfortunately, the release of the sketch brought no new information, leaving the investigation at another standstill. In light of the stalled progress, the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) joined the case on December 4, 2016, bringing additional resources and expertise to the search for Karina Vetrano's killer. Despite the mounting challenges, authorities remained determined to find justice for her and her grieving family. The FBI began by developing a psychological profile of the perpetrator. Experts believe the individual was highly familiar with the area, especially Spring Creek Park, suggesting he likely lived or had lived nearby. However, fearing capture, it was assumed he now avoided the location. The choice of the quiet, overgrown area for the crime indicated careful planning. Based on this theory, police conducted screenings among local African American men, but this led nowhere. Chanel Lewis, a young African American man from Brooklyn, eventually came under scrutiny. Living in a low-income housing complex about 4 to 5 miles from Spring Creek Park, Chanel shared an apartment with his mother, 3 sisters, and their children. He was unemployed and diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. But this didn't prevent him from graduating from a private school for students with emotional and behavioral challenges. Former classmates described Chanel as a quiet loner who was often the target of bullying. The kids constantly picked on him, said one peer. Even girls intimidated and punched him. He had no friends. Another former student mentioned that while Chanel occasionally fought back, it wasn't effective, and he was often ridiculed for his appearance and clothing. Chanel's habit of wearing a hoodie and walking away with a smirk in tense situations earned him the nickname African Lizard. Despite this, some peers recalled a different side of Chanel. Danielle Munes, a fellow student, remembered him as a smart kid with good grades. She added, "He liked to show me funny videos on the bus. I never saw him be cruel." However, unsettling details about Chanel's past surfaced. Some sources claimed that during middle school, he expressed violent thoughts, allegedly stating he wanted to cut all the girls. He was also rumored to have asked, "What happens if I bring a knife to school?" Dr. Edward Dana, the executive director of the private school Chanel attended later, countered these claims. "We received no reports of threats in middle school," he said. "During his time at our school, he had no disciplinary sanctions. I never heard him make threatening statements towards other students." These mixed accounts painted a complicated picture of Chanel Lewis, a young man whose life had been marked by isolation, bullying, and rumors, but also by moments of normalcy and academic potential. This complexity would later play a crucial role in the investigation into Karina Vetrano's tragic death. Chanel Lewis was a troubled teenager who often faced bullying. Despite his challenges, he had aspirations of working in social services, wanting to help those in need. When conflicts arose at home, Chanel would wander the streets, frequently visiting Spring Creek Park. Over time, he had a few minor run-ins with the police. These included 2 violations in the park and 1 incident for urinating in public. In May 2016, he was reported by a local merchant for loitering in a store while holding a crowbar. The police checked his ID but let him go, as he had no prior criminal record. However, this interaction would later prove significant in the investigation of Karina Vetrano's murder. In February 2017, Detective John Russo recalled something important about the case. He had previously noticed a young man in a hoodie frequently wandering through Spring Creek Park. Russo had even tried following him once, intrigued by his unusual behavior. The young man walked slowly, often stopping in front of houses near the park, as if observing them for potential burglaries. However, Russo lost sight of him during the pursuit and couldn't follow up. After Karina's murder, Russo's memory of this individual resurfaced. Investigators revisited Chanel's file and found peculiarities that piqued their interest. Russo's hunch led the police to investigate Chanel further. They spoke to his acquaintances and former teachers, uncovering troubling information. Chanel had reportedly expressed harmful thoughts toward girls, which deepened investigators' suspicions. During the investigation, detectives discovered that on the day of Karina's death, Chanel was not at home. He had left after an argument with his family and gone to the park. When he returned, his clothes were torn and he had visible bruises and abrasions. When his mother asked about his appearance, Chanel claimed he had been attacked. His account aligned with a witness's description of a man fleeing the park. Additionally, on August 3, 2016, the day after Karina's murder, Chanel's father, a former school principal, took him to the hospital to treat severe wounds. These details significantly strengthened the police's focus on Chanel as a suspect, setting the stage for further investigation. Chanel Lewis's story unfolded in shocking detail. Investigators discovered that on August 3, 2016, the day after Karina Vitrano's murder, he was treated for cuts and an injured hand, injuries consistent with a violent altercation. The medical records further corroborated this timeline. On February 4, 2017, Chanel voluntarily provided his DNA to investigators, leaving detectives puzzled. Would someone guilty willingly do this? The interrogation began on February 5, 2017. Chanel admitted to being in the park around 5 p.m. On August 2, 2016, he described walking along dirt paths and listening to music when he encountered Karina jogging with her phone in hand. When asked if anything happened during the encounter, Chanel nodded and quietly said, "Yes." His initial response was vague, leading investigators to press further. Eventually, he confessed, "I was angry." One thing led to another. What happened, he then elaborated, providing a chilling account of the events. Chanel explained that he was walking in the park to distract himself from a family argument when he saw Karina jogging alone. He decided to follow her. When she passed him, he grabbed her shoulders, threw her to the ground, and hit her face multiple times to silence her. "My punches knocked out several of her teeth, injuring my hand," Chanel recalled. The struggle lasted about 5 minutes. Despite fierce resistance, Karina scratched and bit him, trying desperately to fight back. To avoid attracting attention, Chanel dragged her off the path into tall grass, where he attempted to undress and assault her. Even in shock, Karina continued to resist. Eventually, Chanel strangled her until she stopped moving. When asked if he knew Karina beforehand, he replied, "I did not know her before this. It all happened by chance." The motive behind his actions shocked investigators even further. Chanel revealed that his uncontrollable aggression stemmed from loud music played incessantly by a neighborhood gang member. This music, he claimed, triggered intense hatred and rage, which ultimately culminated in his attack on Karina. The confession provided the police with a clearer narrative of the crime, but it also raised questions about Chanel's mental state and the randomness of the act. Investigators knew they had a confession, but they also understood the importance of corroborating evidence to build an airtight case. These doubts and allegations of contamination were central to Chanel Lewis's defense strategy during the trial. His legal team argued that the evidence, including DNA traces, might have been compromised due to the significant number of individuals who had interacted with the crime scene. They also claimed that the DNA evidence alone, though compelling, was not sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Despite Lewis's initial confession, the defense cast doubt on its validity, asserting that it had been coerced under pressure and questioning whether he fully understood the implications of his statements due to his mental health issues. They highlighted his history of paranoid schizophrenia, suggesting it could have impacted his behavior and decision-making during interrogation. The prosecution, however, presented a strong case, emphasizing the DNA evidence as conclusive. The microscopic traces found on Karina's body and phone were an exact match to Lewis's DNA, linking him to the crime scene. They also reiterated the details of his confession, arguing that it included information only the perpetrator would know, such as the extent of Karina's injuries and the sequence of events. Witness testimonies and Lewis's behavior leading up to and following the crime further strengthened the prosecution's argument. his suspicious actions in the park, and the injuries he sustained around the time of the murder aligned with the timeline of events, according to the prosecution. The media closely followed the trial, dividing public opinion. Some viewed the case as an open and shut matter due to the overwhelming evidence, while others believed the defense's claims of racial bias and procedural misconduct warranted further scrutiny. Advocacy groups also became involved, debating the broader implications of the case for race and justice in America. On April 1, 2019, after deliberating on the evidence, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Chanel Lewis was found guilty on all counts, including the murder and sexual assault of Karina Vetrano. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought some closure to the Vetrano family, but questions about the motive behind the crime and the broader societal issues surrounding the case continued to linger. For Karina's loved ones, the trial's outcome was a step toward healing, even if the senseless loss of a young, vibrant life could never truly be reconciled. Forensic biologist Linda Rosano testified that the odds of the DNA found on Karina Vetrano's body belonging to someone other than Chanel Lewis were 1 in 6 trillion. The prosecution also presented evidence from Lewis's phone records, which revealed searches related to second chances. And forgiveness in Catholicism, this prompted a key question: what sin was Chanel seeking forgiveness for? The release of Lewis's confession video added fuel to the controversy. His defense team argued that the confession had been coerced under extreme pressure, with the police allegedly using improper tactics. They claimed the recording began only after significant off-camera interrogation and suggested that the search of Lewis's home may not have followed protocol. The defense's case also relied on accusations that investigators, desperate for an arrest due to mounting public pressure, used Lewis as a scapegoat. The trial took an unexpected turn when the jury, swayed by the defense's compelling arguments, could not reach a unanimous verdict. On November 21, 2018, the judge declared a mistrial. A writ trial was initially scheduled for January 22, 2019, but was postponed to March 2019. During the writ trial, the prosecution presented the same robust evidence, including DNA matches, Lewis's confession, and circumstantial details that tied him to the crime scene. This time, the jury deliberated for 5 hours before finding Chanel Lewis guilty of all charges related to Karina Vetrano's death. On July 23, 2019, Lewis was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Even after the verdict, the case continued to generate heated debate. The defense raised concerns about the trial process, alleging jury misconduct based on information from an anonymous source. They claimed jurors were pressured into a guilty verdict, and some even referred to the trial as a lynch mob. What initially seemed like a straightforward case unraveled into a narrative that exposed deep societal fears and prejudices. Karina Vetrano's death left a lasting impact on her family, her community, and society at large. For many women, it became a somber reminder to remain vigilant while pursuing simple pleasures like jogging in the park. Did justice truly prevail? While the court found Chanel Lewis guilty, questions linger. Was he the real perpetrator, or did systemic flaws in the investigation lead to the conviction of an innocent man? In either case, two families were devastated. Karina's life was tragically cut short, and Chanel Lewis's family lost him to a life behind bars. The hope remains that the judicial system uncovered the truth and delivered justice. If not, the real perpetrator may still be free, evading accountability for a heinous crime. Thank you for watching.
This comes from a CCTV camera inside a hospital. Hospitals don't really sleep. Even late at night, there's quiet movement, nurses checking on patients, machines running, families drifting in and out of wards. On this particular night, something else may have been moving too. What you can see is the figure of a small child, completely still. not moving toward anyone, not reacting, just standing there like it's waiting. And then a couple walks directly through it on their way to a patient ward, and they clearly have no idea anything just happened. Hospitals come up again and again in conversations about unexplained activity. They carry fear, grief, hope, and loss all at once, and many people believe that kind of concentrated emotional weight doesn't just evaporate when people leave. Was this a trick of light and shadow, or did that camera catch something that walks those halls every night without anyone knowing it's there? This is from 2018, a security camera inside a man's store. The place is an open-air garage, nearly 20-foot ceilings, wide open space, clean sightlines, the kind of layout where movement is almost impossible to miss. The owner is alone in the store one afternoon when this happens. His sunglasses hit the floor. At first pass, maybe they slid off something, got bumped, but when he pulled up the CCTV, nothing had come in, nothing passed by, no gust of air, no vibration, no obvious cause. And they didn't tip over or slide, they flew, like something threw them. In a wide open space with nowhere to hide, the idea of an invisible presence strong enough to throw a physical object becomes a lot harder to dismiss than it would be in a dark, cluttered room. So what's your read? Freak accident, or something in that garage that had been watching him work and finally decided to make itself known? The owner of a Mexican seafood restaurant starts picking up on things that individually aren't much, but as a pattern start to feel hard to explain. Glasses not where he left them, items behind the bar slightly out of place, that creeping feeling something moved when he wasn't looking. He chalked it up to long hours at first. Then the security cameras started catching things, and he stopped chalking it up to anything. First clip, he's about to serve a drink. A shot glass moves on the tray. He notices it, pauses, assumes he imagined it, keeps going. Second clip, one of the bartenders is holding a bottle when the neck snaps clean off in his hand. Third clip, a bottle slides on its own, no one near it. You could argue the busy working environment explains some of it. Vibrations, people moving around, close quarters. But then the restaurant closes for the night, empty, and the security audio picks up whispers, low voices in a space that should have nothing in it. The staff has moved past "Is this real?" and landed squarely on "What do we do about it?" 2017. A woman is trying to get some work done. Whatever else is in that room has other ideas. It builds slowly. The chair shifts, subtle, easy to wave away. Then it moves further than it should and drifts back, carefully almost. When that doesn't get her attention, a bottle on the table tips and falls. She looks up, confused, trying to find a reason. And then her chair gets pulled backward, hard enough that there's no more explaining it as gravity or coincidence. This was interaction. And if you brighten the footage, you can see what looks like a faint silhouette moving in sync with the chair, like something is physically pulling it away from her. The question people are still sitting with, was something in that room trying to scare her? Or had it always been there, and it was finally done waiting to be noticed? A CCTV camera in a local store late at night after everyone has gone home. The doors are locked. The place is empty. Or it should be. It split people right down the middle. The draft explanation came up immediately, a random gust moving the toy across the floor. But it doesn't slide, it doesn't tip, it rolls smoothly, almost like it's being guided. Then came the faulty motor theory. Someone suggested the toy had been left on and a glitch set it off. Reasonable on paper, but the store owner says the toy hadn't been touched for hours, and the footage shows a closed, empty building. The detail that kept pulling people back when they slowed it down frame by frame, the motion doesn't look random, it looks controlled, like someone applying just enough pressure to keep it going. Locals say strange things have been happening in this store for years. Items falling from shelves, footsteps after closing. So was this just a mechanical malfunction, or was something in that store passing the time playing with a toy, assuming nobody was watching? This guy makes music and games. Pretty grounded, everyday life stuff. But for weeks, something in his bathroom has made him deeply uncomfortable. Not just unease, but the specific feeling of being watched. What pushed it past something he could shake off was his cat. The cat won't go in. It'll sit outside the bathroom door and stare into it for long stretches, tracking something the camera can't initially pick up. When animals start behaving that way consistently, people start taking the situation seriously. One night, after feeling that presence again, he left the camera running. Have a look.
Oh my god, bro. I just seen the craziest shit. Look, over there. Over there, I just seen the craziest shit. Look. Oh my god. What was that? Oh my god. Oh my god, what is that? I'm like shaking right now. What is that? Look it. Watch, it's gonna do it again. It's gonna do it again. Look at that. Nah, bro.
Some people's first instinct was staged, friend hiding, elaborate prank. But if that's what it is, the cat should have been calm, and this hadn't happened once. According to him, this same figure had shown up repeatedly over the previous 2 weeks, always briefly, always in the same area, never fully revealing itself. That kind of consistency is what keeps the staged explanation from sticking. So, is this the beginning of something he needs to take seriously before it builds further? Or do you still think it's a setup? If you've been here a while, you know this house. A 263-year-old colonial home with a creepy attic and a doll collection that's made more than a few viewers call this one of the scariest private residences in America. It earns that. The owners have been documenting years of unexplained activity, figures moving through rooms, heavy footsteps when the house is empty, disembodied voices, and a cat that behaves as if it's watching something invisible move from room to room. This time, she's going back into the attic, the same one with deep claw marks scored into the door that nobody has been able to explain. Have a look.
Definitely a little late with doing this because I don't want to upset the girls, but it is time to take off their little Santa hats and store them away for the year. Very, very sorry. And somehow the door is still open, and I need to grab the gift and the tree. Chain check. I feel bad. Maybe I'll put like some Valentine's decor or something up in here. And I'm actually going to put the chain over here just for ha-has to mix it up a little bit. We all heard and saw that, correct? Oh my god, I feel like I gotta get out of here. Alrighty.
That sound. It's not settling wood. It's not a random creak. That's a door moving. In a house with this much history, moments like this have become almost routine, and that's somehow more unsettling than if they were rare. Some researchers believe that in homes this old, certain spirits don't confine themselves to one space. They move freely through the house, while others anchor permanently to specific areas. For her, the attic is always the same, the immediate sensation of someone standing directly behind her. But it's not just the attic. Have a look at this next one.
I just had one of my little manifestations come true, and I just realized it right now, and I wanted to share that with you guys. I'm not going to share what it is because it's kind of personal and a little specific, but you guys know that I'm obsessed with all things manifestation, all things journaling. If you're not journaling already, you need to be journaling as if you are already your future self. I wanted to show you guys my new journal. I always have a few going on, but do you like it? Wonder what that could mean. Stay tuned.
While she's talking about journaling, grounding herself, staying calm, the candle above her starts swinging on its own. No draft, no open window. And here's the thing that makes it harder to explain away. It's always that exact candle. None of the others in the room move when it does. Not ever. Whatever is in this house hasn't quieted down. If anything, it feels more deliberate, more consistent, like it's learned the rhythms of the people living here. Until something changes, this house keeps earning its reputation.
A man is alone in the middle of renovating a house built in the early 1900s. Every wall in that place, every staircase, every sealed-off corner has seen generations pass through it. While he's working, something happens that still has people disagreeing about what it actually means. Watch.
The heck is that? Hello? Who is it?
The easy assumption, he dropped the phone and it was him spinning it. But listen, you can hear him coming down the stairs, clearly, breathing hard, after the phone has already started moving. He physically couldn't have been in both places at once. So if it wasn't him, what was touching it? Old houses carry long histories. Celebration, illness, grief, loss, all of it absorbed into the walls over decades. Some people believe that renovating a house like this disturbs whatever energy has settled into it over time, almost like waking something up that's been dormant for years. Until more of this story surfaces, and until the full history of that house is known, this one stays a mystery.
This next person actually calls himself a skeptic.
He doesn't come at this from a place of belief. He's been going back through his own footage, specifically trying to debunk it, looking for reflections, glitches, anything with a rational explanation. He hasn't found one. Have a look. He was fully awake when this was recorded. He never noticed the light flashing on the picture frame while it was happening, only on camera. According to him, nothing in the room changed during that moment. No airflow, no movement, no electronics nearby that could have created a reflection or triggered anything. Paranormal researchers sometimes describe anomalies like this as brief manifestations of energy, disturbances that cameras pick up more readily than the human eye. Skeptics will point to a dying battery, an unseen reflection, a camera artifact. Both explanations are on the table. Is it something mundane with an easy fix? Or is this exactly the kind of thing a skeptic captures right before they stop being a skeptic? Ian is back, this time at the Squirrel Cage Jail, officially the Pottawatomie County Jail in Iowa, built in the late 1800s, a place defined by overcrowding, isolation, and suffering. But the section that unsettles people most isn't where the adult criminals were held, it's the juvenile detention area. Children were locked up here, and over years of visits, investigators and tourists have consistently reported that those children never fully left. Ian goes in with one goal: find out whether any of that is true. Watch closely.
There's little children still hanging around here. Could you move one of the toys in one of these cells? Maybe if I sit down, I'll be less intimidating. You don't have to be afraid. I just like to make friends with you, and I just want to let you know that you're not in trouble anymore. You can go if you want. You're not in trouble. I thought I heard a little voice over here. Hello? Who's in here? Thought I heard somebody. Oh my god. Those mannequins keep scaring me. Well, seems pretty quiet in here. I thought I heard for sure. It sounded like a voice, like a little child in here. I'm gonna have to enhance it and see if a voice recorder picked up on it.
There's a belief that child spirits are more likely to stay, particularly in places built on fear and isolation, where the emotional weight was heaviest for the most vulnerable people. So what was that sound? A residual echo from the past, playing on a loop in a building soaked in history? Or something darker, using a child's voice to pull attention? Whatever it was, it didn't wait for Ian to call out to it. It came to him first. In a place like the Squirrel Cage Jail, that's not reassuring. For more from Ian, subscribe now. A solo explorer set out to investigate an old abandoned asylum in Norwich, Connecticut, a place carrying decades' worth of dark rumors. He walked every hallway alone, filmed everything, and came home having experienced nothing during the visit itself. He figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. Within days, his house became somewhere he no longer recognized. Unnerved and running out of rational explanations, he raised his camera and spoke directly into the silence, telling whatever might be present to knock once if it could hear him.
Knock if you hear me. Knock if you hear me. Knock if you hear me.
The knock came immediately. What followed was rapid and relentless.
Hello? Is anyone there? What the fuck? What the fuck? Who is out? Oh my god. Oh my goodness, what the fuck? Hello, who is there? Oh my goodness, please stop. What the fuck? Please stop. Please stop. This is my house. Leave. Leave. This is my house. You're not allowed here. Leave. Oh my goodness. Hello. Oh my goodness.
Banging, voices, shadows moving through rooms that should have been empty. Then, one afternoon, sounds drew him toward the kitchen, and when the camera came up,
What the fuck?
A dark figure was peering around the corner before sliding back out of sight. The worst was still coming. That night, a pale and featureless face slowly emerged from the darkness, pushing towards him, closing the distance. He fell back and ran. He hasn't returned to that house since, and no update has ever been posted. Whatever was waiting inside that asylum, he didn't leave it there. Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts was once a massive institution. Thousands of patients, harsh conditions, and a reputation that outlasted its closure in 1992 by decades. By the time a security guard was assigned to watch over the empty building in the year 2000, the rumors of what lingered inside had already spread far and wide. He explored the basement one night, camera running, and noticed nothing unusual while he was there. But look at what was recorded. Deep in the shadows, a tall, slender figure, moving slowly and deliberately, almost as though it was staying just far enough back to avoid being fully seen. The guard was completely alone. He was certain of it. Decades later, that footage still hasn't been explained. Whether it was shadow, reflection, or something else entirely, Danvers may have never truly been abandoned.
A woman was out walking a quiet forest trail with her Labrador, camera casually rolling, when the dog suddenly locked up, pulling hard toward the tree line, fixated on something buried deep in the shadows. Look at what the camera caught.
Come on, Bruce. What's up? Come on. Come on. Oi. Come on. Bruce. Come on.
Between the trees, barely visible, a shape, human in outline, almost swallowed by the darkness, but unmistakably there. She didn't see it in the moment and kept walking. Seconds later, the dog pulled again toward the same spot, and she filmed it again. The figure had moved, slowly stepping behind a tree, like it was actively trying to stay hidden.
When she sat down later and went through the footage frame by frame, the realization hit her. She had not been alone on that trail at any point. Matt had lived in his house long enough to know something wasn't right about it. Years of strange incidents had taught him that much. One evening, alone except for his dogs, a sudden noise from another room snapped him out of his calm. This is what the camera picked up.
What's going on?
Is that? What the was that?
Dogs reacted instantly. Then a second sound came from somewhere deeper in the house, and the tension in that room became impossible to ignore. He posted the footage online. Half the people who watched it think the place is haunted. The other half have their theories. After seeing it, you can decide for yourself. A man was dead asleep when his wife shook him awake, insisting she'd heard something coming from the old shed behind their house. He grabbed a flashlight, picked up his camera, and went out to check. What he found stopped him cold. Here's the footage.
The wife just woke up, said she thought someone was playing in our back shed.
Lurking in a far corner of the yard was a dark figure, completely still, just standing there in the dark. He backed away fast. But the disturbances didn't end that night. On a separate occasion, he swung his camera back toward the house during another outdoor check and spotted movement near the attic window that had no explanation.
Noise in one of our sheds. I'm not really sure what to expect.
Then, during another night of investigating, this time from inside the house, his camera caught something at the far end of the hallway that made everything worse.
What is that noise?
The small ceiling panel leading up to the attic started shaking, rattling hard, repeatedly, like something on the other side was pushing against it with intention. When he finally forced himself to go up and look, the attic was completely empty. No animals, no damage, nothing. The footage remains unexplained to this day. Two theater employees were finishing up their closing routine one night when knocking echoed through the empty building. They grabbed a phone and went looking for the source. This is the footage from that night.
Otra vez. ¿Qué fue?
The sound was traced toward the projection area. As the camera panned upward, a dark figure was visible standing in the shadows, just standing there, watching. A few nights later, during another after-hours walkthrough, one employee turned his camera toward a darkened section above the auditorium. A pale face stared back at him from the dark, present for only a moment before it was gone. Nobody has been able to explain what they captured, not then and not since.
Pixie Paranormal was deep inside a secluded forest in Sussex, England, running a late-night investigation with her team. What the camera captured out there shook every single person present. Here's what they recorded.
A load of kids running around in here. Can you hear them all?
That's a big-ass dog.
That's a girl crying. Can you hear that, guys? Hang on. Turn the lights off for a minute, people. Turn these lights off. Turn these lights off. Hang on a minute, guys. We've got to turn these lights off. Turn the lights off. Turn that light off. Turn it off. Shh. Shh. Just sit down. It is a girl.
Voices broke through the darkness. Cries, whispers, what sounded like a young girl in distress, coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. No identifiable source. Pixie cut the lights, and the team went silent. Whatever it was undeniable. The investigation wrapped up, but it seems like something didn't let go. Days later, back at her home, Pixie began hearing loud cracking sounds coming directly from a mirror hanging in her room. This is what happened when she started filming it.
Go up here. Look at my mirror. My mirror's cracking by itself.
What's happening? Wait. Wait, stop.
Harry, my mirror is cracking by itself.
It's cracked twice so far. Why is it cracking by itself?
I have no fucking idea.
There's too big.
Right on camera, new cracks slowly spread across the glass surface, nothing touching it. Something from that forest had apparently made the trip home with her.
Marie and her friend had been using one of those random location apps late at night, the kind that sends you somewhere completely unknown and lets curiosity do the rest. The coordinates landed them on the edge of town in a stretch of open darkness that felt off the moment they arrived. They were recording before they even got out of the car. This is what was waiting for them.
Why did we just go to this quantum points and this whole person is Sky? Oh my I can't.
What if the person shows up in my rear view camera?
No, I can't.
A man stood perfectly still in the distance, facing directly toward them, not moving, just watching. And as they scanned the area around him, they realized there were others, shadowy figures closing in from multiple directions. They left immediately. Whatever those people wanted, Marie and her friend never stayed long enough to find out. Wade was home alone one evening with his young child and his dog when something in the living room made him stop and stare. Take a look.
Could just record the whole thing. Yeah, here we go. Let's go potty days. Nope. Nope. Go to the room. Go. Daisy. Go, 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 go.
A chair sitting in the corner had begun to move, slowly sliding on its own. He immediately checked for drafts, every window shut, every door closed. No explanation. Sleep was difficult that night, and in the early hours he was pulled out of it by a scratching sound just outside the bedroom door. His stomach dropped the moment he realized his dog was right there beside him on the bed. He turned on the camera and opened the door anyway. This is what happened next.
Daisy, no, 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 no. Shh. You okay? Come on. Daisy. Come on. Come on, 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 come on. Daisy, get in the car.
The house was silent, but the feeling in that silence was unbearable. Wade didn't investigate further. He grabbed his child, grabbed the dog, and left. Whatever had been inside that house that night, he still doesn't know what it was. Emery had just gotten the devastating news. Her father's dog, a companion he had loved for years, was gone. Unable to let go of the happier times, she found herself scrolling through old recordings she had captured during visits to his home. In one video, she was lying in bed, completely relaxed, when the dog suddenly snapped to attention, staring hard at something across the room that simply wasn't there. It began barking furiously at a shelf lined with family photos and sentimental objects. Nobody was near it. And then, see for yourself. The memorial display on that shelf shifted on its own, and as the dog continued barking at that exact spot, it was suddenly thrown sideways, as if something invisible had physically shoved it. This house had a long history of things that couldn't be explained. After watching this, it's easy to understand why. If you made it through all of these, drop a comment and tell me which one got under your skin the most. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. See you in the next one.
TikToker Appalachia Decay lives in a 200-year-old farmhouse deep in the West Virginian mountains. She started hearing violent scraping sounds coming from behind this basement door. She assumed it was rats, but when she started recording, she realized something much larger was trying to get out. The terrifying part? There is no room behind that door. Look at the force on that handle. This door has been sealed shut against a solid stone wall for decades. There is zero physical space for a human to stand there. Yet someone or something is desperately trying to turn that knob.
So these are the steps that lead out. I don't know what that is, but if you look, it's been sealed from the inside and the outside.
She fled the basement and hasn't gone back since. Who or what is trapped behind a door that leads nowhere?
Kuma Wicks had barely unpacked his bags. 3 days into his new life in Columbus, he noticed a building nearby that didn't quite fit. An old structure with a past as a church, sitting there like it was waiting for someone to pay attention to it. So that night, he and some friends did exactly that. They went in. At first, the place gave them nothing. Dark hallways, empty rooms, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're the only living thing for miles. Then something caught their eye drifting through the corridor, and the mood shifted completely. Take a look at what they captured.
Here.
Bear, explain this, man.
It was in the rafters, on the other side of the building.
You guys see the force on that?
Yeah, you know, trolling. It's
Whoa.
3 o'clock.
Bro, watch that.
Nah.
Watch. Watch the force it has.
So what you're seeing is a single balloon moving through the hallway. And the key word here is moving, not floating randomly the way balloons do when a window's cracked somewhere. This thing has a path. It's not bouncing off walls, not spinning in place. It's traveling.
Okay, we might have got it trapped. Is it cold?
Oh, there's incredibly even out of it.
Why is it going so fast then?
Move,
There's no air in that. Oh. Dude, what the? Why? There's no air for cookies. We're kind of like split here, dude. Bear.
I'm looking. I'm watching.
One of the guys immediately goes looking for a source, finds an electrical box, a small fan, but the airflow coming off it is almost nothing, barely enough to ruffle your hair, let alone guide a balloon through a building. And just when they think they've seen everything, a second balloon shows up on the upper floor, making the exact same journey downward. Same building, same direction, no explanation that fully holds up.
Come join us, or are you gonna go downstairs? Goodbye. Say goodbye, knock on wood.
This time is going to the gym. Like you said. You said the gym doors are open. Why don't those lights? See, that big shadow that was there earlier is gone.
Both balloons eventually made their way into a gym room tucked at the back of the building, and there they stopped. No dramatic ending, no loud moment, just stillness, which honestly might be the strangest part of all. A reasonable person could point to air pockets, structural gaps, old ventilation. Buildings like this are full of quirks. But two separate balloons moving with that kind of consistency through a building with that kind of history, that's the detail that stays with you after the video ends. Whether something was guiding them or not, Kumo and his crew walked out of that building that night unable to fully explain what they'd seen. And that feeling, that's exactly what makes this one linger.
United Warhorse is a comedian who built his career on being a skeptic. He never believed in ghosts until his friend Joe sent him this security footage. Joe had been hearing heavy thuds in his basement and thought it was a raccoon. What he caught instead is absolutely bone-chilling.
Is the most important evidence to poltergeist, I believe, in history. When it comes to actual footage. Okay, box falls. Ain't nothing big. Ain't nothing serious. I don't know what's in that box, and I don't know what it's on, but it falls, okay? It looked like there's a little tension going on that box. Look at that. You see that? How it's tilting? It just snapped into place like that. Watch, it gets worse. That box is shaped like a diamond now. That's bananas. Let's run it back one more time and watch the stuff on the table now. Okay? Watch all this stuff on the table. How many items just moved at once? My friend Joe hears this shit. He's hearing stuff happening downstairs, okay? So he's like, F it, let me go downstairs and grab the camera so I can see what it is. And at this time, he's not thinking ghosts. He's thinking of a fucking animal in his basement, probably running around trying to figure out a way to escape. See, here he comes. He's coming downstairs. He was telling me it was mad weird. Right when he got down, like halfway down the stairs, he said like he felt something. He felt mad weird going downstairs. Like he was like, there's something wrong. So when he came downstairs to touch the camera, now what you guys want to do is look at the table again. Did you see that? Everything flew off the table.
Look at the box on the floor. It doesn't just tip over, it's being dragged and twisted by an invisible hand. And notice the table. The moment Joe starts walking down the stairs, the items aren't falling, they are being thrown. Joe reported feeling a freezing, uneasy presence the entire time. Warhorse is no longer a skeptic. But what happens when you have a camera to prove your hallucinations are actually real? A family was gathered to watch The Deliverance, a film based on a real-life demonic possession. Right as the movie reached its climax, the power cut out. The room went pitch black and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Listen to their reaction.
Bro, what the Oh, hell.
Some believe the energy of the movie acted as a beacon for something lurking in the house. Deep in the forgotten wilderness of Russia, an urban explorer known as Universe of Mems found something that should have stayed buried. He hiked miles into the dense forest to find a decaying high-security complex. It looked like it hadn't seen a soul in 30 years, but as he approached a pitch-black room at the end of a corridor, his camera caught a movement that shouldn't exist. Watch the doorway closely.
Прикольно, ребята, давно не было у меня таких приключений. Типа сталка. Здесь, ребята, жутковато. Потому что здесь, блин, куча этих волков, зверей всяких. Подходим, идем дальше. Смотреть, шо, как. Вот, ребята, еще такой вот бункер. Фу, территория очень большая. Здесь будет очень тяжело найти эти шахты. Так, пошли. А вот здесь уже стрёмненько, ребята. Какие-то комнаты. Что это было? Ребята! Валим! Фу, блин!
Right there, a tall, shadowy figure manifests in the doorway. The explorer freezes, the realization hitting him that he is miles from help and inches from a potential threat. He turns and sprints, but the feeling of being chased never leaves him. Later, he uncovered disturbing rumors that tragic events had occurred at this site decades ago. If those stories are true, he wasn't just exploring ruins, he was walking into a graveyard that hasn't found peace. Herbex Hill is a veteran urban explorer who has seen it all. But during a visit to an abandoned church, he experienced true fear.
What's that?
He caught objects moving in the factory nearby, but nothing prepared him for the presence lingering on the staircase. Look for the physical void in the darkness.
What the was that? Hello? 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 Nobody's in there.
You can clearly see a dark, heavy presence near the stairs. It's not just a shadow, it's a shape that seems to absorb the light around it. Herbex admitted later that he felt a direct sense of malice coming from that corner. He left the church immediately and hasn't returned. But if you think that was aggressive, wait until you see this next clip, which is being hailed as the most definitive poltergeist footage in history. Imagine being home alone and your kitchen suddenly comes to life. A young boy named Jake was in the middle of his afternoon routine when his faucet slowly turned on by itself. He grabbed his phone to document the glitch, but he had no idea he was standing in the middle of a massive energetic discharge. Pay attention to the background noise.
What the? Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Oh my god! Oh my god!
In the paranormal world, this is known as a surge, a moment where multiple objects react to a single high-intensity spirit. Jake was so shaken up that he eventually claimed it was a joke just to stop the bullying, but his reaction is raw terror. Brian was just filming a simple vlog about enjoying life when his phone screen showed him a nightmare. In the room, everything looked normal, but through the lens of his phone, something was standing right at the edge of his bed. Watch the window.
That's bloody. I might put it on here the 5-star restaurant order me and her so soon.
Right?
How deep the bitch is, I'm gonna put it before my loop. I'm fresh off eyes.
There's nothing there, but on the phone it looks like there's a
too. I be like it pissy too. If I like it,
let me take this off.
See that bitch slamming in my crew. If I don't like it, then I'm gonna fuse my calls and put that bitch on mute. If I don't like it, then I'm gonna fuse my calls and put that bitch on smooth. Bitch, I make my calls.
Oh my god, there's nothing there. What the?
When she come to my room, if you pay for a hit, don't never call my
Hello?
phone. Check the news.
What the? Oh. Can y'all see it? No, run. Oh my god, I see her shadow. There's something at the window. There's something. I'm gonna turn on the lights now. I don't want to play. There's something at the window. Put this down. There's something at the window. Hello? But there's nothing there when I show. Shit! Why are they making my life freeze? My life is freezing. There's literally something there. Bloody Mary!
When Brian turned on the lights, the room appeared empty, but his viewers noticed a faint hand-shaped shadow forming on the wall. His camera was picking up a frequency his eyes couldn't see.
Super Zach, RNX, real name Zach, lives with a medical condition that makes his mind play tricks on him. Shadowy figures, shapes in doorways, presences that feel completely real but exist only in his perception. To cope, he came up with something practical. He started wearing a GoPro around his neck every single day. The logic was simple. If the camera caught nothing, it was in his head. If it caught something, that was a different conversation entirely. One night, Zach became convinced someone was standing in his bedroom doorway. His girlfriend looked and saw no one, but Zach was so certain, so visibly shaken that she called an ambulance. Paramedics arrived and were in the middle of trying to settle him down when something none of them expected happened. Watch.
Let me go past it. They're not gonna let me go past it. Somebody's there.
We're right here,
I'm telling you, somebody's at the door and they're not gonna let me go past it.
What are they wearing?
They're wearing blue. But
Good,
someone's
good.
there and they're not gonna let me go past it. Someone's at the door.
I need you to sit up, okay? Can you do that? Listen, there's no need to apologize. Whatever makes you comfortable, okay?
Thank you.
We're here for you. Okay?
And then, near that same doorway where Zach swears someone is standing, something drops. No one is there. Nothing was placed there. It just falls, and the GoPro catches the whole thing. That moment alone would have been enough, but it didn't stop there. About a week later, Zach's girlfriend, the same person who couldn't see anything that night, suddenly screamed from inside the bedroom.
Hey,
What's wrong? What? What? There's nothing in there.
Insisting she'd just seen someone standing in the room. Zach checked. Empty. Then, during a separate episode in the kitchen, the curtain near the doorway started moving on its own.
Stop bringing that up. Stop saying that. You always wait till now to say that. Whoa. Alexa, light on.
The GoPro recorded it clearly. No window open, no fan running nearby. Now here's what makes this case genuinely difficult to dismiss. Zach's condition means he is always the first suspect when something strange gets reported in that apartment. But his girlfriend has no such condition, and she's started seeing things too. At some point, the question stops being about his hallucinations and starts being about what's actually in that home.
Isaac and his girlfriend were just house-sitting. His aunt went overseas. They offered to watch her place and look after her dog. Nothing unusual about that. The house was old, Victorian, the kind that feels like it has a personality of its own. His aunt had security cameras set up inside, mostly so she could check in remotely while traveling. Everything was fine until one night his girlfriend heard something downstairs while she was alone. Take a look. They brushed it off. Old house, probably nothing. But when the aunt reviewed her camera footage later that night, she found something that made her pause. So this broom in the dining room kept falling over at night, by itself every time. Isaac goes back through the footage to see if anything lines up, and sure enough, right before it drops in one of the clips, there's a shape near the window. Still, dark, there for just a second, and then gone. What unsettles him most isn't even the shape appearing, it's the size of it. It looks like a child. That thought already had them on edge. Then, a few days later, they found memorial tiles on the fireplace, honoring 2 children who had once lived in that house.
Alright, so we found something that might explain what happened last night. These tiles are of 2 children that lived here at some point. This is memorialized, yeah. They memorialized him by putting him on a tile on this fireplace, and I swear this is the kid that I saw.
Isaac looked at those tiles and went quiet. The shape on the footage, the height, the outline, it matched. After that, neither of them felt truly alone in that house again. And honestly, looking at that footage, it's hard to blame them.
If you want to see more proof of the unexplained, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment on which clip was the scariest. I'll see you in the next one.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into a heartbreaking and shocking case. Why was the beauty queen's life taken so cruelly? Beauty is often seen as a powerful force, capable of bringing joy and even changing the world. But sadly, beauty doesn't always guarantee happiness. In some cases, it can bring unforeseen troubles. Beautiful women, especially those with fame, often attract admiration and attention. However, they can also become targets of envy, malice, or even dangerous obsessions. This was tragically true for Kimberly Oliveira. Her story shook all of South America and became one of the most shocking cases in the region. Kimberly was a rising star, a winner of multiple beauty contests, and even a contender for Miss Brazil. She dreamed of fame and recognition, but the reality turned out to be far more cruel than she could have ever imagined. Her name became known worldwide not for her beauty alone, but for the tragic and violent way her life was taken in her prime. Kimberly's story left people both awestruck by her beauty and horrified by her untimely death, wondering about the heights she might have reached. So, who was Kimberly Oliveira? Kimberly Karen Mota de Oliveira was born on February 26, 1998, in Manacapuru, a quaint town in Brazil's Amazonas state. She was the eldest child and only daughter of Nyla and José Oliveira, growing up with 2 younger brothers. Kimberly's heritage was Brazilian, Spanish, and indigenous, blessing her with striking looks that captivated everyone she met. She had flawless skin, thick, luxurious hair, a radiant smile, and a graceful figure. Her beauty drew admiration from people of all ages, with many comparing her to an angel. From a young age, Kimberly loved dance, gymnastics, and swimming. She cared deeply about her appearance and manners, while also excelling academically. She loved reading, attended theater performances, and studied foreign languages. By her teenage years, Kimberly had already begun participating in beauty pageants, where she won numerous titles. She also modeled for advertisements and clothing brands, quickly becoming a local sensation. Kimberly's beauty and talent seemed like the start of a bright future, but her life took a tragic turn that shocked everyone who knew her. In high school, Kimberly firmly decided to pursue a career in modeling. Her inspiration came partly from her mother, Nyla, who was a celebrated beauty in her youth and won several titles, including Miss Manacapuru. However, Nyla later chose to marry and dedicate herself to raising her 3 children, leaving her modeling aspirations behind. Kimberly, aware of her remarkable physical features and love for the camera, envisioned a different path for herself. Kimberly's talents were undeniable. She was frequently featured in fashion magazines, participated in numerous shows, and earned the title of the most beautiful girl in her hometown. In 2017, she reached the finals of the Miss Amazonas contest and planned to compete again, this time with her sights set on the prestigious Miss Brazil title. A victory there could have paved her way to global competitions like Miss World or Miss Universe. However, Kimberly understood that winning at such a level required more than just beauty and charisma. Contestants were evaluated on their intelligence, education, moral character, and charitable activities. Moreover, they had to meet strict criteria, such as having no criminal records or controversial photo shoots. Determined to excel, Kimberly managed her social media actively, promoting a healthy lifestyle, sports, and proper nutrition. Her posts often featured moments from her life, professional photo shoots, and motivational messages for her growing audience. By 2019, her social media account boasted tens of thousands of followers, and she aimed to inspire others with her positivity and ambition. At 19, Kimberly decided to pursue higher education and aspired to become a dentist. She moved to Manaus, the bustling capital of Amazonas, to live with her maternal uncle, Henry, while preparing for university. After successfully passing the entrance exams, she enrolled in medical school. Leaving the quiet comfort of her hometown, she quickly adapted to city life. She balanced her studies with her modeling career, participating in advertising shoots and various projects while making new friends and embracing her busy lifestyle. In her free time, Kimberly enjoyed spending time with friends, often hanging out in lively groups. Despite her achievements, her life took a darker turn when she encountered a persistent and cunning admirer, which ultimately became a pivotal and tragic element in her story. In the fall of 2019, Kimberly and her close friend were enjoying an evening at a popular club when a handsome young man, Rafael Fernandez Rodriguez, approached them. He introduced himself, offering to buy Kimberly a cocktail. Accustomed to attention and knowing how to handle such situations, Kimberly politely declined, explaining she was with her friend and didn't need anything. Rafael apologized for bothering her and walked away, but Kimberly had no idea that this seemingly random encounter was far from accidental. Rafael had been following Kimberly's social media for about a year, silently observing her posts and stories without reaching out. When he learned from her updates that she had moved to Manaus, he decided to act. At 31, recently divorced, and working as a corporate lawyer, Rafael moved to Manaus as well, securing a high-paying job and renting a luxurious apartment in an upscale area. Obsessed with the idea of meeting and starting a relationship with Kimberly, he meticulously planned his approach. After the unsuccessful attempt to connect at the nightclub, Rafael shifted his strategy. He began sending Kimberly private messages on social media, inviting her on dates, and actively liking and commenting on all her posts. Despite his persistence, Kimberly paid him little attention. She often encountered similar admirers and saw nothing unique about him. Undeterred, Rafael changed tactics. He started befriending Kimberly's classmates, friends, and even her relatives on social media, trying to integrate himself into her circle. Eventually, one of Kimberly's close acquaintances unknowingly provided him with her phone number. With this new access, Rafael began messaging Kimberly through instant messengers, suggesting they meet in person. Rafael had studied Kimberly closely, learning about her interests, favorite places, and hobbies. He even attended outdoor training sessions that Kimberly sometimes conducted. It was during one of these sessions that he finally managed to catch her attention. They spoke for the first time, and the encounter marked a turning point. After that meeting, Kimberly and Rafael began communicating more frequently, exchanging messages and calls through social networks. This marked the beginning of a connection that would soon take a dark and unexpected turn. Rafael managed to capture Kimberly's interest with his charm and careful approach. Despite their nearly 10-year age gap, they developed an easygoing friendship. Rafael courted her thoughtfully, making sure not to scare her off while constantly reminding her of his presence. His strategy worked, and by March 2020, Kimberly and Rafael officially became a couple. However, Rafael's true nature quickly emerged. What initially seemed like affection soon turned into an obsession. He began monitoring Kimberly's every move, demanding to know where she went, who she spoke to, and who messaged her. At first, Kimberly brushed it off, even finding his possessiveness slightly amusing since she had never experienced such behavior before. But as time went on, Raphael's actions became more invasive and controlling. Raphael started dictating which photos Kimberly could post on social media, when she could go live, and whom she was allowed to interact with. He demanded she block certain people and approve her activities with him first. Frustrated by his behavior, Kimberly tried to set boundaries, but Raphael would apologize after every argument, showering her with expensive gifts, romantic dates, and grand gestures like bouquets of flowers to win her back. He assured her that he would never leave her, but his behavior didn't change. Kimberly began confiding in her friends, expressing her growing frustration. She complained that Raphael controlled her life, forbidding her from speaking to male classmates, even at university. He frequently took her phone without permission, checked her messages and call logs, and created scenes if something upset him. His anger sometimes escalated to the point where Kimberly feared for her safety. Her friends were deeply concerned and advised her to have a serious conversation with him. If he didn't change, they urged her to end the relationship before it was too late. Kimberly knew she didn't want to live under such suffocating control. She had dreams of pursuing a successful modeling career, defending her university diploma, traveling the world, gracing fashion magazines, and earning recognition for her talent. The thought of sacrificing all that for a relationship with someone as controlling and unstable as Raphael was unbearable. She realized she needed to make a final decision about her future, one that would determine whether she continued chasing her dreams or remained trapped in a toxic relationship. By early May 2020, after 2 emotionally draining months in the relationship, Kimberly decided to break up with Raphael. However, she was nervous about how he would react and wanted to approach the situation carefully. She waited for the right moment but realized she couldn't delay any longer. On May 10th, Brazil celebrated Mother's Day, a holiday Kimberly usually spent with her mum. But due to COVID-19 restrictions, she couldn't travel to her hometown to see her family. Instead, she posted a heartfelt photo with her mother on social media, expressing gratitude. Her mother, Neela, was undergoing cancer treatment in the hospital at the time. After posting, Kimberly joined a group of friends, including Raphael, for a run in the park. Observers later said the couple appeared to be getting along well and didn't argue. Only Kimberly's closest friend knew she planned to break up with Raphael that evening. At noon, Kimberly called her uncle, Henry, to let him know she would spend the day with her best friend, Gabriella, but would return home later that night. She asked him to leave the front door unlocked since she had forgotten her keys. Trusting her, Henry left the door open and went to bed. That evening, while at Gabriella's house, Kimberly rehearsed what she would say to Raphael. She carefully chose her words, aiming to end the relationship without provoking his anger. Though difficult, she finally felt ready for the conversation. Around 9 p.m., Raphael arrived at Gabriella's house in his new white Audi. Kimberly stepped out with a smile, waved goodbye to her friend, and got into the car. Tragically, this was the last time anyone saw her alive. The mysterious disappearance. On the morning of May 11th, Henry noticed Kimberly hadn't returned home. Concerned, he tried calling her, but her phone was off. He then contacted Gabriella, who informed him that Kimberly had left with Raphael the previous evening and hadn't been in touch since. Henry attempted to reach Raphael, but his calls went unanswered, which was unusual. By midday, it became clear that something was wrong. Kimberly didn't attend her university classes, something she had never missed before. Worried and unable to contact either Kimberly or Raphael, Henry went to the police to file a missing person report for both his niece and her boyfriend. However, when Henry went to the police to report Kimberly and Raphael's disappearance, they brushed him off. They said Kimberly and Raphael were adults who could choose to go wherever they wanted without informing anyone. Frustrated, Henry, along with a few of Kimberly's friends, started their own search. They first visited Raphael's apartment, but no one answered the door, and his car was missing from the parking lot. This suggested the couple had left together. However, Kimberly's loved ones were certain she would never disappear without informing someone. By evening, Henry called his sister Neela, despite not wanting to stress her because of her illness. He had no choice, as she had been trying to reach Kimberly all day and was growing increasingly concerned. Henry tried to reassure her, saying Kimberly wasn't the type to get involved in trouble, didn't have bad habits, and didn't associate with questionable people. Kimberly's friends began sharing her photos on social media and in local groups, pleading for any information about her or Raphael's whereabouts. Since Kimberly was well known in her community and had a growing online presence, news of her disappearance quickly spread. Thousands of followers joined the search effort, but unfortunately, no leads surfaced. A grim discovery. On May 12th, nearly 2 days after Kimberly's disappearance, the police finally took action. A search warrant was issued for Raphael's apartment to look for any clues. What they found behind the locked door shocked everyone. In one of the rooms lay Kimberly's lifeless body. She was on the bedroom floor, partially covered with a sheet, surrounded by a large pool of blood. Blood stains were also visible on the bed, carpets, and other areas of the apartment, revealing a chaotic and violent struggle. It was clear the perpetrator had panicked, attempting to clean up the evidence but ultimately abandoning the effort. Before fleeing, they turned the air conditioning to its maximum setting, likely in an attempt to slow the body's decomposition and avoid detection. Forensic experts discovered 4 stab wounds on Kimberly's body, 2 to the chest and 2 to the neck. The weapon, a large kitchen knife, was found in the next room. It bore clear traces of blood and fingerprints belonging to the assailant, indicating no attempt was made to dispose of it. The horrifying discovery marked the beginning of an intense investigation into what led to the tragic death of the young model. The forensic experts discovered that the weapon, a kitchen knife, had Raphael's fingerprints on it. No other fingerprints were found in the apartment, confirming that the only 2 people present during the attack were Raphael and Kimberly. The lack of defensive wounds or signs of a struggle indicated that Kimberly was likely attacked suddenly, catching her off guard. It seemed that the attack occurred on the bed, but she was ultimately killed on the floor with a fatal blow to the neck, severing her carotid artery. Raphael was nowhere to be found. His personal items, including documents, bank cards, and car keys, were missing. The condition of his apartment suggested he had left in a hurry. What had initially been considered a disappearance now became a manhunt for the prime suspect in a brutal crime. The hunt for the fugitive. The forensic examination confirmed that the fingerprints on the weapon were indeed Raphael's. No traces of other people were found in the apartment, leaving no doubt that he was the perpetrator. Alerts were sent to police stations across the state, and news of the manhunt spread widely on social media, asking the public for any information about his whereabouts. A search was also launched for the white Audi he drove. The detectives worked quickly, following up on every lead. On May 13th, news came that a white Audi had been found crashed in a ditch in the neighboring state of Kakari. Surveillance footage showed Raphael driving the car at high speed before he lost control and veered out off the road. The car overturned, but it was unclear how badly he was injured or where he went after the crash. Failed escape. Investigators soon discovered that Raphael had indeed been picked up by a passing vehicle after the crash and was taken to a nearby town. From there, he took a taxi to a bank and withdrew most of the money from his account. He then took the taxi to the border town of Boa Vista, where he tried to cross the border into Venezuela on foot to escape justice. However, his attempt to flee was unsuccessful due to the tightening of border controls and travel restrictions caused by the worsening COVID-19 situation. Raphael's escape was thwarted, but he remained on the run, and authorities intensified their search for him. That she had been talking to other men. This discovery enraged him, and in a fit of jealousy he became violent. According to Raphael, he confronted Kimberly about the messages, and in the heat of the argument he lost control. He claimed that he didn't remember exactly what happened next, but when he came to his senses, Kimberly was lying on the floor, lifeless. Raphael insisted that it was an accident, claiming that he had never intended to kill her. He said the stabbing occurred during their argument, but the evidence showed otherwise. The brutality of the attack and the manner in which the crime was carried out suggested something far more deliberate than an accident. The multiple stab wounds, particularly to the neck, and the absence of defensive wounds on Kimberly's body, indicated that the attack had been swift and planned. Despite his claims, the evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance footage showed them entering the apartment together, and the forensic analysis confirmed that the knife used in the attack had Raphael's fingerprints on it. It became clear that Raphael's version of events was an attempt to justify his actions and deflect the responsibility for the cold-blooded murder. The arrest and aftermath. After his arrest, Rafael was taken into custody and charged with the murder of Kimberly Oliveira. His attempt to flee the country and evade justice only reinforced the seriousness of his crime. The discovery of his hideout in the forest and the confrontation with his hired guards further highlighted the lengths he was willing to go to avoid capture. Kimberly's family and friends were left devastated by the loss of such a young and promising life. Her mother, who was battling cancer at the time, was heartbroken over the loss of her daughter. The model had been on the brink of achieving so much a successful career, further education, and the opportunity to inspire others. Instead, her life was tragically cut short by the actions of an obsessive and controlling man. In the end, Rafael's attempts to flee and deny his guilt couldn't erase the evidence or the pain he caused. Kimberly's death left a lasting impact on those who knew her, and her story serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the dangers of toxic relationships and obsessive behavior. Rafael's defense relied on the claim that he had acted out of anger and jealousy, insisting that he never intended to kill Kimberly, but only wanted to scare her after discovering her conversations with other men. He said he had taken the knife to intimidate her, and the situation escalated unexpectedly. According to his version, the confrontation quickly turned violent when Kimberly denied talking to anyone, enraging him further. He claimed that the stabbing was a spur-of-the-moment act, something he hadn't planned but happened because of his inability to control his emotions. However, the testimonies and evidence presented by the prosecution painted a different picture. Kimberly's best friend, Gabriella, testified that Kimberly had made the decision to break up with Rafael, and she had carefully planned what to say. Gabriella insisted that Kimberly would never have provoked Rafael or joked about talking to other men, especially knowing his volatile behavior. This contradicted Rafael's claim that she had mocked him. Additionally, Rafael's ex-wife confirmed his history of uncontrollable fits of anger. She explained that his aggression had been a central issue in their marriage and was the reason for their divorce. She described him as a cruel person whose violent tendencies were well known to those close to him. Despite his defense, it was clear that Rafael's jealousy and obsession had driven him to murder. His actions were not a spur-of-the-moment act, but a calculated response to the threat of losing control over Kimberly. His attempts to justify his crime were undermined by the testimony of those who knew him and the overwhelming evidence against him. Rafael's only supporter was his mother, Fatima, who claimed he was a good person and that his actions had been caused by the circumstances. She blamed Kimberly and others for driving her son to commit such a terrible act, expressing sympathy for him rather than the victim. This defense was widely dismissed, as it was seen as an attempt to excuse the crime rather than acknowledge its brutal nature. A lenient sentence and public outrage. Despite the strong evidence and the testimony from several witnesses, there were concerns that Rafael might receive a lenient sentence. Public opinion was divided, with many people expressing outrage at the possibility of him being let off lightly. His mother's defense, along with his apparent remorse, was seen as an attempt to mitigate his punishment, but many felt it was insufficient to justify the brutality of the crime. The legal system's handling of the case would ultimately depend on the judge's decision, but the public outcry highlighted the severity of Rafael's actions and the need for justice for Kimberly. The case not only revealed the dangers of obsessive, controlling behavior, but also the tragic consequences of toxic relationships. Kimberly's death was a sobering reminder of how unchecked jealousy and anger can lead to irreversible harm. In the end, Kimberly's friends, family, and supporters hoped that Rafael would be held accountable for his crime and that justice would prevail. Her story became a symbol of the dangers of domestic violence and the importance of recognizing the signs of abusive relationships before they escalate. The aftermath of Kimberly's tragic death and the subsequent trial left an indelible mark on all those involved. Rafael's father, devastated by the reality of the monster his son had become, could not bear the shame. In an act of despair, he chose to end his life, stepping in front of a train. Although his widow claimed it was an accident due to her husband's poor health, surveillance footage painted a darker picture, revealing it was a deliberate act. This tragic event added another layer of heartbreak to an already deeply painful family story. Rafael's legal team continued to push the narrative of his insanity, hoping to avoid a life sentence by arguing that his crime was committed in a fit of rage. They requested multiple psychiatric evaluations to delay the trial, but in the end, Rafael was deemed fit to stand trial. Despite the overwhelming evidence of his guilt, the legal strategy succeeded in securing him a surprisingly lenient sentence. In October 2021, he was sentenced to 14 years in prison, a term later reduced by a year. The rationale for this light sentence was the defense's argument that he had been acting in a fit of rage, rather than premeditating the murder. This lenient punishment sparked public outrage, with many feeling that justice had not been served for Kimberly. On the very day the verdict was announced, Kimberly's mother, Nayla, who had been following the court proceedings from her hospital bed while battling cancer, tragically passed away. After the verdict, her heart stopped, and the family lost both of their beloved women in a span of a year and a half. First, they lost their daughter and sister, Kimberly, and now they lost their mother and wife, Nayla, to the ravages of cancer. This compounded the grief and despair that the family had already been enduring. Meanwhile, Rafael's mother, Fatima, stood by her son, vowing to wait for his release from prison. She expressed that he was the only family she had left after the death of her husband. This statement was met with mixed reactions, as many felt that Fatima's support for her son, despite his brutal crime, demonstrated a lack of understanding of the magnitude of his actions. As the story came to an end, it left a somber and unsettling legacy. Kimberly's death and the lenient sentence for her killer raised difficult questions about the justice system and the consequences of obsessive, controlling relationships. For the families involved, the pain was only compounded by the senseless loss of two cherished lives. This tragic story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked obsession, the consequences of abuse, and the deep emotional toll it can take on those who are affected.
There's a law older than any government, older than any religion. A line that separates what is human from what is other. For thousands of years, the peoples of the northern forest knew exactly where that line was, and they knew what happened to those who crossed it. The Algonquian-speaking peoples, the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Innu, have lived in the forests of northern North America for thousands of years. These were not people who feared the dark romantically. The dark was real. Winter was real. Starvation was not a metaphor. It was a neighbor that came to visit every year and did not always leave alone. It was in this world of genuine bone-deep cold and genuine bone-deep hunger, that one of the most terrifying entities in human mythology was born. They called it the Wendigo. The word itself in the Ojibwe language translates roughly as the evil spirit that devours mankind. But that translation misses something important, because the Wendigo doesn't come for you from outside. It starts inside. The Wendigo is born from one act, one crossing of the most sacred boundary any human can cross: eating another person. The moment a human being consumes human flesh, even in desperate survival, the spirit enters. And what follows is not a punishment, it is a transformation. The person begins to waste away, growing gaunt, hollow, no matter how much they eat. Their heart, according to the oldest accounts, turns to ice, literally, a physical freezing of the chest. Their skin stretches gray and papery over jutting bones. Their eyes sink deep into their skull and begin to glow, pale yellow, like something seen through ice water. Their lips rot away, chewed off by their own teeth in the endless agonizing hunger that never, ever stops. And they grow. With everything they consume, they become larger. Some accounts say 15 feet tall, 20, the size of the trees themselves. But the hunger grows with them. The more they eat, the bigger they become. The bigger they become, the more they need. There is no end to it. There is no full.
The cruelest part, the part that separates this from ordinary monster mythology, is what they lose last. They remember being human. For a while. In the winter of 1878, in the wilderness of what is now Alberta, Canada, a Cree trapper named Swift Runner set out with his family, his wife, his 6 children. When spring came, Swift Runner emerged from the forest alone. He told the Northwest Mounted Police that his family had died of starvation. He showed no signs of starvation himself. Catholic missionaries who sheltered him noticed something deeply wrong in the days that followed. He could not sleep. When he did, he woke screaming. He told them, unprompted, that a Wendigo spirit had entered him in the forest, that it had used his hands, that he had watched himself do things he could not stop. He led police back to the camp himself. What they found confirmed everything he had said. The bones of his wife and 6 children scattered around the camp. Evidence of fire, evidence of consumption. At his trial, Swift Runner did not deny what had happened. He said only that it was not him, that the Wendigo had done it. At his execution in 1879, the first legal execution in the province of Alberta, he showed no fear. He showed no remorse either. He said the Wendigo was still there, watching. But Swift Runner's story, as monstrous as it is not the most disturbing chapter in the history of the Wendigo. That belongs to a man named Jack Fiddler. Jack Fiddler was a chief of the Sucker clan of the Sandy Lake Cree in northern Ontario. By the time Canadian authorities came for him in 1907, he was believed to be somewhere between 80 and 90 years old. He was arrested for murder. He did not deny the charge. He admitted to killing 14 people over the course of his life. But his defense was not insanity. It was not passion or accident. His defense was this. Every person he killed had been on the verge of Wendigo transformation. He had seen the signs. He had been called upon by their own families to intervene. He was a Wendigo hunter. It was a recognized role in his community. A person trained to read the symptoms, the creeping hollowness, the disturbing fixations, the eyes that began to change, and to stop the transformation before it completed. The families of the people he killed agreed with him. They had asked him to do it. They had seen what was happening to their loved ones, and they had gone to the one person who knew how to stop it. The Canadian government saw only a man who had killed 14 people. Jack Fiddler was taken to jail. At age 87 or thereabouts, he escaped his guards and hanged himself from a tree. He refused, it was said, to die in a white man's cage. The Canadian government's position was clear. There was no such thing as a Wendigo. What Fiddler and his community believed was superstition. What he had done was murder. The Cree had a different position. They said the government simply didn't understand what lived in those forests. In the 20th century, Western psychiatrists began encountering something they couldn't explain. Indigenous people in remote northern communities during periods of deep winter isolation and starvation were presenting with a specific, terrifying cluster of symptoms. An overwhelming ego-dystonic compulsion to eat human flesh. Ego-dystonic. That word matters. It means the patients were not psychopaths. They were not detached. They were horrified by what they felt. They begged family members to kill them. Some described physically feeling their heart hardening and freezing in their chest. Some reported looking at the people they loved and seeing them transform before their eyes into large, edible animals. They knew it wasn't real, and they couldn't stop seeing it. Anthropologist Morton Teicher compiled 70 documented cases of what he called Wendigo psychosis, spanning 1636 to 1960. 300 years of cases across different tribes, different regions, different centuries. The same symptoms, the same progression, the same terror. Psychiatrists have debated it ever since. Some argue it is a culture-bound syndrome, a shared belief system so powerful that it manifests physically, a kind of psychosomatic loop activated by genuine starvation and isolation. Others point out that this explanation, while tidy, does not actually address what the patients were experiencing. The debate has never been resolved. Here is what I think is the most important thing about the Wendigo. The Algonquian peoples did not only see the Wendigo in starving men in the wilderness. They saw it in the settlers who arrived and stripped the forests bare in a single generation. They saw it in the trading companies that took everything and left nothing. They saw it in anyone who consumed beyond need, who took from the community, from the land, from others, driven by an appetite that was never satisfied. The Wendigo was always a metaphor, the most terrifying kind, one that is also literally true. It is the spirit of greed, of overconsumption, of treating other living things as resources rather than relatives, of becoming something that eats and eats and eats and grows larger and hungers more and can never, ever stop. The Cree did not need the 21st century to understand this. They built the understanding into their most frightening story. They made it a monster so that their children would know, instinctively, viscerally, in the middle of the night when logic fails, exactly what you become when you stop seeing other people as human. Swift Runner is buried in an unmarked grave somewhere in Alberta. His family's names are not in the official record. Jack Fiddler's body was cut down from the tree by his people and buried according to their traditions. The 14 lives he took and the question of whether he was a murderer or a guardian remain without a verdict that satisfies everyone. And somewhere in the deep forest of northern Canada, there are Cree elders who will tell you, quietly, without drama, with the calm certainty of people who have no reason to lie, that the old warnings still stand, that something listens in those trees, that the hunger once woken does not go back to sleep. They're probably right.